Come on, Annie. Let's go to the movies.
This is the Cinereelists, episode 518. My name is Kyle.
My name is James.
And my name is Zach.
And we're here to talk about movies, movie lists, and movie obsession for the next hour or so. James, I want to give you a big thanks for holding down the fort last week.
Oh, sure. No problem. I had a little help from a friend, for sure. It's fun to have Mo on again.
I have not fully listened to the episode yet because I'm not caught up on Boba Fett, but I listened to it a little bit, and it was cool hearing Mo on again. I think the last time we had him on was for Mandalorian, right?
Yeah, it was. It was for Mandalorian. So, I had him on for Book of Boba Fett, which was fun. Definitely.
We'll need to have him back soon.
We will.
I haven't listened to the episode at all yet because I haven't seen any of the Boba Fett show.
Mm-hmm.
Should I check
you
it
say
out?
Boba Fett?
He did.
Yeah, like I said, I haven't seen any of it.
That much is obvious.
And you've never heard of Boba Fett until today.
Did you watch Mandalorian season 2?
No.
Oh, okay. So but you did watch Mandalorian season 1.
Of course. Must see TV.
Why didn't you watch Mandalorian season 2? It's been out for over a year now.
I would love to. That sounds fantastic.
It's like the easiest show ever to watch because they're like
20
to 30 minutes long. There's only 6 or 7 of them. It's basically just like watching a movie if you binge them.
I'm down.
James, how many small children are in your household currently?
0.
Oh, okay. There we go.
What are you saying that he has had 13 months to watch a 3-hour thing? You're excusing him?
I mean, I don't know. You could just put the blinders on Kayla, and just every time she looks at the TV, turn her head the other way. Keep her distracted somewhere else.
Sure. Yeah. You can do that. I mean, I'm not saying sit Kayla down and have her watch Mandalorian, but there's not a whole lot of craziness in Mandalorian.
Okay. So it's toddler friendly.
I don't know if it's toddler friendly, but
is it?
I don't know. It depends on how much. If the TV's on, is she watching it? Or if it's obviously not for her, does she ignore it?
She would definitely watch it for sure.
Really? Oh, okay. Well, maybe not then. I mean, it's Western, so it's like, there's occasionally gunfire and stuff like that. So if that's out of the realm of possibility, then probably not watch it around here.
And you've taught her all the Western tropes already, correct?
Yeah, she's already a huge fan of the genre.
Yeah. So I mean, I think at this age she can probably appreciate it.
Sure.
All right. Zach, you said you had a check-in, correct?
Yeah. So I do have a check-in. So the new Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers trailer came out.
It did.
So
Yeah.
this is a movie that's being made out of Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, the old cartoon from the late 80s or early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a movie that I've actually been looking forward to. One, because I was a fan of Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers. And 2, because it's being made by the Lonely Island dudes.
Mhm.
And I think they are really funny and really capable of making something interesting. They're also pretty out there and I was expecting them to do something a little crazy with it, but I was very curious what they come up with. Anyway, the trailer came out and I have just a lot of thoughts.
Okay.
What is before you get into your specifics, what are your overall thoughts after seeing this trailer? Are you more or less excited for this movie now?
I am less excited to see this movie.
Okay.
Wow.
Less
Did they
excited.
go too far?
Well, so here's the thing. The basic premise of the trailer, if you don't want to hear any spoilers for the basic premise of the trailer, this is your
For
warning.
Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers.
Yeah.
If you're a purist and you want to go in cold, stop listening.
Is that this is years after Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, the TV show. and Dale has decided to get 3D surgery basically and become 3D animated instead of 2D animated. And I love that idea. That's a fantastic idea. And Dale looks great 3D animated. He looks fantastic. Here's my big problem is that Chip looks terrible. He's the one that's still 2D animated. And the 2D animation that they did for Chip, and I think the rest of the Rescue Rangers in 2D animation, is awful. It's so bad. It looks nothing like the old TV show. It's like all the lines are too thin. Maybe because the old TV show wasn't in standard definition or something.
Mhm.
But I hate the look of the 2D animation of Chip. Like his mouth looks like too thin and small. He just looks weird to me. And I was like, the 3D animation looks so good, and it's not like these are complicated drawings, right? I mean, it's a Saturday morning cartoon from the 90s. They somehow managed to not be able to draw it the same. And it's such a shame, I think.
I haven't seen side-by-sides with the 2D. Yeah, it's either Chip or Dale. I don't know which one. But the 2D version in the new movie versus the 80s one. But I wouldn't be
Yeah.
shocked if they drew it in the exact same style as the 80s cartoon. And it's just in the context of everything else being drawn cartoon, and like the fact that those cartoons in the 80s just weren't very well drawn. We didn't notice it because we were kids, but they're not exactly the height of 2D animation, those Saturday morning cartoon shows that they were pumping out like it was nothing. So I'm wondering if that's part of the joke, is like he's badly drawn, drawn in a hurry. Meanwhile, the 3D versions of characters are like crisp and clean and look somewhat realistic. It's an upgrade.
Yeah, I would be surprised if they're making that type of joke, because it really just looks, it's just a different style of animation. And especially for something it's trying to say essentially like, you still look like the old way and now I look like a 3D new version.
Mhm.
We're no longer comparing the 3D version to the old version. We're comparing the 3D version to a new different 2D version. Like, I think it's so distracting to me from what they're trying to do by how differently they've drawn him. Do you notice how like just the proportion of his lines are so thin compared to how they used to be?
Yeah. Wait, are his clothes 3D in this picture?
Yeah, I think they are.
That might be plot wise. I think in the trailer, plot wise, I think he has to put on like Indiana Jones clothes. So yeah, I'm talking more about how his face is drawn.
Mm-hmm.
It's just it just looks so different in my mind with that tiny little mouth, the little line of a mouth. Anyways,
I don't know. It
I'm
might just be the
nitpicking.
pose in this shot.
Yeah.
No, it's every picture from both these eras. Trust me.
I'll trust you. I definitely have not gone through every photo.
I'm just saying, it's the whole trailer looks like the second photo, and the whole original looks like the first photo.
I thought maybe you would have problems with this trailer. I never thought it would be this.
Well, I let me continue, because this is
Okay.
not my biggest problem with,
Okay.
with the trailer.
Okay, good.
Good.
I'm glad, because this is a small issue compared to like some of my concerns.
I have a much bigger problem with the trailer.
Uh-huh.
And I'm going to send you a picture right now over Discord.
Oh gosh, it's another
this.
picture-based issue.
It is a
I'm thinking like
picture-based issue.
plot is the issue.
I will describe it. Don't worry. At one point in the trailer, they show a bad guy, right? And it's kind of a funny moment in the trailer because the bad guy has like a Jurassic Park like pose almost. It's like a reference to Jurassic Park with the Tyrannosaurus Rex at the end, kind of a thing. Let me know if this is coming through or not.
Not yet.
Okay. And it's kind of clear that this guy is like made up of a bunch of different kind of composite animals or characters. And anyways, I didn't think anything of it, right? I don't care. But then one article, and now two articles, like articles on the internet, are saying that he has Robin Hood's torso. Disney Robin Hood's torso.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so one thing about this trailer is that it kind of feels like it takes place in Toontown from Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Okay.
Because like Roger Rabbit shows up, there's all these different cartoon properties from like different things. And so you kind of feel like maybe this is in Toontown and like any cartoon can show up, right?
Any Disney owned cartoon, yes.
Or yeah. And so 2 articles are saying that, I think the picture came through now. 2 articles are saying that this guy has Robin Hood's torso.
No, he doesn't.
It kind of looks like something that might be from Robin Hood. Now, I haven't analyzed Robin Hood frame by frame and seen the discoloration in the rings and all those kinds of things, so I don't know. But
Robin
this kind of
Hood's
looks
got,
like something that a character
No.
from Robin Hood would wear.
he has like a thin torso that kind of opens up a little bit as it gets closer to his legs.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm not talking about the
Like,
size of the
he's very
torso. I'm talking
long.
about
He's
the
very-
shirt.
Right. Okay.
Okay,
So
the shirt.
here's what James is describing. This character is wearing a green shirt with a thin brown belt and like kind of a green collar with a deep V-neck, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so James, you know, I guess in his ignorance, thinks that this looks like what Robin Hood wears in Disney's Robin
Like
Hood.
something that some character in Robin Hood would have worn. I have no clue if it's actually Robin Hood, but like period specific, my memory of what the characters in
Sure.
Robin Hood wear.
Sure.
It's garb like this.
Sure. Now, I would expect better from a reporter, right? Writing an article. Okay, now I'm going to send you 2 more pictures. Here's Robin Hood, who looks nothing like this. He's got a thick brown belt, no deep V neckline, and then Peter Pan, who this is obviously Peter Pan, right? So if you compare this to the picture of Peter Pan, it's his belt, it's his deep V, it's his collar. It's Peter Pan's torso.
Okay. You're going to send us
Are
this
you-
photo?
Yeah,
they're
I
coming
sent this
through.
to you.
Oh, you already sent it.
So I think you can clearly see from this, that's not Robin Hood's shirt, it's Peter Pan's shirt. And James, if you want to disagree, you're crazy, because this is absolutely the outfit that Peter Pan is wearing to a T, and detail wise is nothing like Robin Hood's shirt. So am I right?
I'll
Kyle?
tell you that if
No.
you gave me those 2 and asked me which one was closer to Robin Hood's shirt, I would agree with you that it's
The one that-
not. It's the one from Peter Pan. I agree. But it's not far away from the Robin Hood one. Now, these reporters, which I'm curious to know which websites you're considering these reporters from. Is this like a content farm? Or is
Yes.
this like the New York Times that's exposing whether it's Robin Hood's shirt or not?
No, this is cheatsheet.com/entertainment.
I thought this was like Maggie Haberman doing 1,000 words in the new trailer.
Yeah, so I would agree that it's closer to Peter Pan, but I would not be upset if a content farm got it wrong that it was Robin Hood, because it's not terribly far off from that Robin Hood shirt. I would
Zach
say.
is kind of sensitive to all things Robin Hood.
No.
little
This
bit.
is no, hold on. I haven't gotten my point yet.
Oh,
Okay.
but there's
Okay.
still the point.
I haven't gotten my point yet. Okay, so clearly I think
To
we
be
can
honest,
see,
the whole outfit, even the hats, are similar. They're not the same, but they're similar.
James, obviously, people have famously mistook these 2 characters for each other because of their outfits a ton, right? It happens. People see a Robin Hood outfit, think someone dressed as Peter Pan. They see a Peter Pan outfit, they think someone's dressed as Robin Hood.
I'm not
Happens all the
saying
time.
that. I'm not.
No, I'm saying that. I'm literally saying that. If you go to Halloween and you wear a Peter Pan outfit, people are going to think you're Robin Hood and vice versa. Okay, it happens all the time.
This is
No,
just
I
some
think
angst
no matter
Zach has
what,
about
they'll
dressing as
think you're-
Robin Hood ever calling
They'll
Peter
think you're
Pan on
Peter
Halloween.
Pan, no matter what.
Okay, here's my real problem. Okay, so clearly in the trailer,
Mhm.
they're referencing Peter Pan, right? So like this is Peter Pan's exact outfit. And these articles got it wrong and said that it was Robin Hood just because to them it looked like their memory of Robin Hood, but they were forgetting about Peter Pan. And it was intended to be Peter Pan. Here's my big worry, big concern, okay? Is look back at the picture of the bad guy.
Mhm.
It appears that his it's got Robin Hood's exact color fur in his like arm and like lower torso around the shirt.
Sure. It's a
Here's
similar
what I'm
color. I
afraid
agree.
of. Here's what I'm afraid of
Mhm.
is that the animators in this trailer thought that they were drawing Robin Hood. Like they meant this to actually be Robin Hood's torso, but then they drew Peter Pan's
Oh.
outfit on there because they didn't know the difference. And that bothers me.
If I can maybe make you feel a bit better, I think so. You're looking at the left arm and the orange on that.
Yes. I'm hoping that's some sort of underclothing.
I think that's Wreck-It Ralph's arm.
Yeah. I think
And
so,
Wreck-It
too.
Ralph wears a red polo, so you might be seeing the polo sleeve. Is the
Oh,
red.
that would be fantastic. Okay, great.
But you're right. There is at the bottom of the torso, there is red on this character, reddish orange, and that's hard to tell what that's supposed to be.
Yes. Okay.
I think it's most likely that they are drawing Peter Pan, and that's why the shirt looks like Peter Pan. And you're just putting a lot of stock in a bunch of content farm websites that got it wrong.
No, that's the best case scenario, right? That it's
Right.
Peter Pan, and then these articles are just for silly reasons saying it's Peter Pan and are wrong. And here's a big problem: you can't comment on these articles; they're commentless. I can't let them know. And so other content farms take from this content farm, and it's going to be an endless cycle for months of people repeating these lies.
I also think it's more likely to be Peter Pan because the vast majority of people don't have any clue what Disney's Robin Hood, what Robin Hood was wearing. But Peter Pan is a very, very popular classic cartoon that would be like the top shelf Disney titles. And Robin Hood is not a top shelf Disney title, I would say. Like if you asked people to just name off 10 classic Disney animated movies, I know for you it would be in the 10, but for your average person, I'm not sure it would be. And so I think they would try to emulate Peter Pan over Robin Hood any day if they're just going for like most recognizable.
Yeah, first of all, I doubt either of those movies would be in most people's top 10.
You don't think Disney's Peter Pan is considered like a Disney classic over
I
Robin Hood?
don't think it would be in top 10 because you got to compete with Snow White and Cinderella and Dumbo and Sleeping Beauty and Aladdin and Lion King and Little Mermaid.
I think we can agree though that Peter Pan movie and character is more iconic and more well known than Robin Hood in the Disney canon.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I think that these people are wrong.
I mean, there's a Peter Pan ride at Disneyland and Disney World that is like one of the original rides.
James, you are trying to convince me of something that I am agreeing with you on.
Sure.
What I'm saying is
no, Zach. Peter Pan is more popular.
What I'm saying is, one, it was annoying that these articles were saying it's Robin Hood, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
But two, I got a little worried, and now I'm glad that's Wreck-It Ralph's sleeve.
I'm pretty sure
because that helps me feel better. I was worried that the animators got it wrong too, and that they meant this to be Robin Hood. That these content farm article writers knew more than I did about the intentions of the film, and that the filmmakers conflated Peter Pan and Robin Hood. That would bother me.
Gotcha.
I don't think these content farm writers are fact checking or going to make corrections to their previous articles.
Well,
so
they definitely
even
are
if you
not.
could comment and contact them, they're gonna be like, "Hey, dude, I got to pay $50 to write that. I'm onto like that was 10 articles ago. I'm not even worried about that anymore."
I'm just trying to fight misinformation and fake news, and it's impossible. You can't fight fake news these days.
No. I mean, you really gotta.
You really can't, especially when you're fighting it all alone. Okay, so you still really haven't. I mean, short of the fact that the animators may have unintentionally emulated Peter Pan instead of Robin Hood, these are your biggest issues with the trailer?
Yeah, those are my only issues with the trailer.
Those are your only issues with the trailer?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
What about
Otherwise, I think
just-
it looks interesting. I like the concept of a 3D surgery instead of 2D and all that kind of stuff. But I hate the animation on Dale or Chip. I mean, I hate it. So much.
With the pop culture references in the trailer, I was getting strong like lazy kids movie vibes from this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like even that picture you're sending us of the bad guy doing the Jurassic Park thing with the the banner falling like the T-Rex. like that. I let out an audible groan watching the trailer when that moment happened. Like
For sure.
really. So
Yeah, and it kind of feels like Wreck-It Ralph for the animated set. You know what I mean? Like Wreck-It Ralph just jammed a bunch of characters and video game characters in a cartoon and like,
mhm.
you know, tried to ride that wave. Now, Wreck-It Ralph I think does have like its good parts, but I'm not sure the weird nostalgia, IP cramming was its strongest suit for sure. And they tried it in part 2 and nobody cared about part 2. Anyway, and I don't need to defend the story integrity of Chippendale's Rescue Rangers, that's for sure. But it's pretty meta in the trailer and seems like something for people who maybe have never even seen an episode of Chippendale's Rescue Rangers, because that is not what the show was. Never meta, I would say.
Right.
So this happens to have the title Chippendale Rescue Rangers, and I'm sure Chippendale go on a rescue mission at some point in it, but that kind of seems like where it begins and ends as far as like emulating the cartoon based on the trailer. Who knows?
I'm looking forward to gadgets made of common small objects. If we don't have a bunch of those in there, I'm gonna be disappointed.
Yeah. I'm also
I just wish
curious to see Lonely Island do something that's not R-rated.
Hot Rod, that was not R-rated.
Hot
Right.
Rod's not R-rated?
I don't know. It's such a forgettable movie.
What? Hot
What?
Rod's great.
Hot Rod's
I've
great.
watched it twice. I gave it a second chance for this podcast, and I can't tell you anything new about that movie from the first time I saw it.
Sure. I mean, what is there new
Whiskey.
to know about it? Yeah. I mean, I'm excited for it because it's Lonely Island related, and I hope they surprise me. But I got cringy vibes while watching the trailer. I was just kind of like, really? This is what we're doing with this?
I mean, it's such a simple drawing. How do you mess it up?
Zach's still sending us pictures of all these all these pictures of Chip.
It just looks so different.
I don't think it is different. I'll give you that. I don't think it's vastly different. And I do think they may have changed the design to bring it more in line with the 3D version.
No, but that's the whole point of they did not do that, James. The whole point is a contrast between the 3D version and the 2D version. They're
Right.
not trying to sync them up.
Right, but instead of having the chipmunk, the 3D version of the chipmunk with the exaggerated features of the 80s cartoon, they toned down the exaggerated features of the 80s cartoon so that the somewhat realistic looking CGI chipmunk wouldn't look ridiculous. Same issue they had with Sonic, right? Sonic Hedgehog, the moment you try to make it 3D, they thought it couldn't look like the cartoon or like the video game, because literally Sonic's eyes are one big eye. There's like no line separating it. And so they were like, we can't do that in a live action movie that has a CG character in it. It'll look too goofy. And I think that might be the motivation behind some of the creative choice to change the 2D version of it. But I don't think it's a vast difference.
I disagree with you, James, because the 3D Dale looks more like the 2D Chip from the original than the 2D Chip in this one.
Do
Like they,
you know what the difference is, Zach?
What?
So the 2D Chip, the new one, he has like more of his face is cheeks, more of his face is the lower half, and he has less like eyes and forehead of the upper half. So they changed the proportion. You look at the previous one, and he was definitely more eyes and forehead than he was cheeks and mouth.
Yeah.
And they've either evened that out or they've given him more cheeks and mouth as compared to his forehead. I think that's what's throwing you off, is the head proportions mostly off.
Yeah. I mean, James, clearly it's the same character, right? So they're drawn similarly. I just think if you're going to have a movie where it's like the original characters, they should be drawn the exact same way and then show this 3D animated that's totally different, right? I don't see the point in changing the 2D ones. I just see changing the 3D ones. I don't know. It's a minor quibble, but it's like it's I don't know. It should. I was disappointed. It's distracting to me.
It's obviously going to ruin the movie for you. So.
That's
Probably.
distracting to you, but the fact that it bears very little resemblance to the 80s cartoon in story has like no bearing whatsoever.
No, that's fine. I'm okay for an adaptation.
Interesting. I mean, this is beyond adaptation. It's practically, a brand new property, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, there has been nothing Chippendale related in the last 30 years.
Is that true?
Sure. Yeah, there's the show and then nothing.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else.
We've talked for 25 minutes on Chippendale.
Yeah, we
Probably.
have. It's time to move on.
I think, Zach, you got to send me these images so I can put them in the show notes. Otherwise, people will be completely lost.
I gladly will.
Okay. All right. And now that the discussion is over, they'll know it's there. And now they can click through and look at them. Kyle, you mentioned you had a check-in as well.
Well, I thought we were going to talk Oscars.
Oh, you want to talk Oscars first?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that was my check-in.
Oh, that was your check-in. I thought you
Yeah.
had a check-in with your kid. Something about your kid.
Oh, well,
Or
that
no?
pertains to Nightmare Alley.
Gotcha.
So we can save it for that.
Okay, so the Oscar nominations for this year were announced. We're going to talk about those. Before we do, some quick housekeeping. There's a video version of this podcast that I just mentioned. It's on YouTube. Go to YouTube, search Cinereelists. You could also support the podcast on Patreon, patreon.com/Cinereelists. You could leave us an Apple podcast review. We'd appreciate that as well. Or send us a listener email to heyguys@cinereelists.com. Send us an email. There's a good chance we will read and discuss it on the podcast. We got an email last week from Justin. Justin writes, "Hey guys, I have a movie recommendation, but it's one that I've not seen personally. I've just heard enough about it that I'm curious, but want one of you to be the guinea pig." Now, before we go into the movie, do we promise to be guinea pigs for people? I don't remember that. I remember like you like a movie, you recommend it, then we'll watch it. That's the deal, right?
Not like,
Listener
hey, tell me how this
suggestions.
is.
Right. The deal isn't, I think I might like this movie, but I also might not like it. So one of you watch it for me and let me know. That's not the deal.
James, I think they're just acknowledging that you're a tastemaker and they want to know your opinion.
Why are you throwing this on me?
Well, keep reading the email.
No, I don't remember. Does he say me specifically? All right,
Yeah.
I'll read it. It's called The House. It's a 2022 stop motion film on Netflix. Have you heard of this? The plot synopsis describes this as an anthology across different eras. A poor family, an anxious developer, and a fed-up landlady become tied to the same mysterious house in this animated, dark comedy. It looks very strange, sinister, and interesting. So right up James's alley, I bet. Okay. There it is. Please let me know if it's worth checking out or not. Love, as always, 1989. Justin. Thank you for the email, Justin. I did take a look at the Wikipedia entry for this, and the poster kind of has me sold. So I will watch it, but not because it's a listener recommendation, because it's not. You can only recommend things you've actually seen. I'm doing it because I want to watch it.
Not because you're telling me to.
Not because you're telling me to.
Nice.
Now here's the question, James. Would this
Yes.
movie have been on your radar if Justin had not emailed us?
I had not heard of it.
So there's our chicken versus egg scenario right there.
No, I mean, it's not a recommendation. It's a heads up.
But now you're watching it based on a listener communique.
But he can't recommend it without having seen it. You can tell me it exists, which is what he's done here. But if you haven't seen it, you can't recommend it.
So since he's made you aware of it, you can now watch it.
Right. And then
Okay.
maybe I'll recommend it back to him. But
But I think that's what Justin wants, is you to either give it a thumbs up or thumbs down. So I think you have to watch it and then just keep it to yourself.
if I'm going to watch something that somebody has not even watched, and I'm going to do it for them, then I need a little reciprocation. If I give it a thumbs up, he has to watch it.
Okay, has to. All right.
Has to. He's obligated to watch it. And you know what happens when you forego your obligation when it comes to this podcast.
James, I still want you to open the door to then every listener writing in saying, "Hey, watch this and tell me how it is." I mean, they're expected to like, review movies or something like that, and that's just silly.
They can do that, and we can choose to do it or not do it. But if we take up the challenge and then recommend it, they have to watch it. Or if we don't like it but still recommend it, they have to watch it. I think that's only fair, personally. Thank you for the email, Justin. If you'd like to send us an email, again, heyguys@cinereelists.com. Let's talk Oscar nominations. These are the 94th Academy Awards. Do we just want to buzz through nominations, or do we just want to talk high level of what we thought about the nominations? What do you guys think?
I think high level.
Yeah,
High level.
because
Okay.
we're gonna do a Oscar picks episode anyway.
Sure. So, I guess just to set the stage for people who may have missed it, or it's been a week or two, maybe you've forgotten kind of what the nominations roughly formed at. The Power of the Dog was kind of the big nomination winner with 12 nominations, including nominations in just about every major category. Denis Villeneuve was number 2 with 10 nominations, one of them not being Best Director, though, which seems kind of crazy for you to get 10 nominations and not get a Best Director nomination out of it. West Side Story and Belfast each had 7 nominations. And probably the strangest nomination, just because it never happens, is Drive My Car, which is a Japanese language film. Got 3 nominations. It's the 14th non-English language movie to get a Best Picture nomination of all time. And it's the 4th non-language movie to get a Best Picture nomination in the past 4 years. So they're kind of on a tear of nominating non-English speaking movies for Best Picture. I think it's probably part of like the ever-changing makeup of the voting blocks of the Oscars, I would guess. They're maybe a little more open for non-English speaking movies. Might also just be accessibility, possibly. You think that's part of it?
No.
Like if you think back to like 30 years ago, right? The 90s, the 80s, the 70s. You had older people voting for sure. You had an older, mostly white, mostly male voting base. But you also had a world where it's hard to see movies that are not in English. You know what I mean? Like nowadays, it's far easier to get access to those things than it was back then. You're
No,
shaking
because
your head no.
everyone in the Academy gets a screener of any movie that's nominated.
They didn't in the 90s or the 80s.
They didn't?
No.
They weren't getting like VHS tapes?
Miramax started doing that when they went on their run in the 90s. And that's part of the reason why movies like Shakespeare in Love won Academy Awards for Best Picture, is because a lot of people were able to see it at home. They were like,
okay,
they pioneered those kinds of campaigns. And then eventually it became standard. If you want your movie to win, you got to get it in the hands of the people voting.
Okay, well, the 90s was 30 years ago. So if I don't think it's accessibility within the last 3 or 4 years because of streaming, because they've been accessible for 25 years with the DVDs.
I think maybe it's just more of an openness from the Academy to consider non-English speaking movies for Best Picture for anything outside of just international feature.
Yeah, and like let's say let's say they had an availability of DVD screeners in the mid 2000s, right? But you're looking at a history of them not nominating non-English speaking movies. So if you're the distributor of a movie like Drive My Car, are you going to pay to have screeners made of a movie that's probably not going to get nominated compared to putting it on a streaming service, which is almost cost neutral? You know what
But
I mean?
it's
It's
not.
like nothing basically for them to do that comparatively,
But it hasn't been on a streaming service.
but it has. There's a private streaming service for
Oh, gotcha.
Oscar nominate
Oh,
or
okay.
for
No, I
Oscar
see. Not a
people,
public
Oscar
one.
voters, and like not every one of these movies is on it, but the ones that are not available are most likely on it because that's how you get votes, basically. They've stopped doing the DVD, the physical media screeners. I mean, I might be wrong about this, but I feel like in the 70s, people weren't even considering foreign language movies for best picture. I think there was generally a vibe that if you were a foreign language movie, you had your category. It's best foreign language.
Yeah.
And English speaking movies are the ones that are available for best picture. I don't know. Do you think I'm wrong, Zach?
What? No, I definitely agree with what you just said.
Okay.
It's just that's a different thing altogether than that. Yeah, streaming makes it easier to see movies,
Mm-hmm.
but I think people have had access. If you're in the Academy, you've had access to these movies for 30 years.
Yeah.
And
I don't think it's
Um,
any one of those things. I think it's the changing makeup, the accessibility of the movies, and a general attitude change that Best Picture is not 10 reserved spots for English speaking movies.
and also, I mean, also it used to be 5 movies could be
Yeah,
nominated
the
for
fact
Best
that's-
Picture, and now it's 10.
Yeah.
So that kind of like Drive My Car wouldn't be on this list if it was still 5.
Yeah.
It when they made the change, I thought it was up to 10. Is it now always 10? Is 10?
No, it's up to 10 still.
It is still up to 10. Okay.
I don't remember it ever actually being 10 until this year. I don't know if that's right or not, but I feel like
I don't know.
it is right.
Yeah,
I feel
that
like
sounds
in
right to me.
2008,
It was after Dark Knight is when they made the change.
so it was the 09, I think. Or the 09 year in 2010.
Something
I think
like
they
that.
announced that it could be 10, and that year it was like 8 or 9. But then every year since then, it feels like it's been 6, 7, 8, like never quite 10. But the fact that it is 10 means that the voting's pretty spread out.
Yeah.
Because it not only is it 10, but you have to get a certain percentage on top of that in order to become one of the 10. Like you can't have like 2%. It's got to be like a decent percent before you can even get into the nominations. All right. Any other like just broad things you guys noticed? Any snubs? I have a list of like other firsts, but they're not like specific about the nominations themselves. Was there anything you were surprised and happy about?
There were 2 things. There were 2 nominations that didn't happen, which
Mhm.
I wish would have happened. Both are in the supporting actress category. I'm surprised that the last. I'm not terribly surprised, but somewhat surprised that the last Duel has no Oscar nominations whatsoever.
Really? It was completely shut out?
Completely shut out. And
That's
Wow.
like
crazy.
I'm totally fine. Like Ridley Scott has, I'm pretty sure he has Oscars. He's also the acclaimed director. Ben Affleck has Oscars. Adam Driver has Oscars. Matt Damon, they all have Oscars. So I'm fine with them not being included. I do think Jodie Comer should have gotten a Best Supporting Actress nomination because she
Mm.
was the rock of that movie. So
Mhm.
the rest of it, I'm fine with. That was I think, maybe not a snub, but I would like to have seen that. Then also Alana Haim in Licorice Pizza not getting a supporting actress nomination surprised me too.
Yeah, I mean, she was good in that movie, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying if she had gotten it, I'd have been upset, but I can't say it's like the most memorable performance from last year for me.
And I've only seen 2 of the 5 Best Supporting Actress performances, so I can't say like trade this one for that one. So maybe those other 3 are better than those 2, but those were
Why
2
would it
that
be a supporting actress performance, not a best actress?
for either of them.
For Jodie
I
Comer
yeah, for Haim.
or Haim. Yeah.
I think
Or
Jodie would have been supporting just because
Why?
I don't. Well, I don't think she had the most screen time. So I think it's the biggest reason.
I think she's on the screen as much as more than any of as much as any of the guys.
Okay.
She's on more
I don't
than
know.
Ben Affleck.
Well, yes, more than Ben Affleck, but Matt Damon or Adam Driver.
Mhm.
I guess Alana Haim could. I could see more Alana Haim getting Best Actress than Jodie Comer getting Best Actress.
Okay.
For me, Jodie Comer's performance is more than the supporting role, but they all kind of seem like supporting roles in a sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I would have taken her over Nicole Kidman in Being the Ricardos for sure. And I would have taken her over Penelope Cruz in Parallel Mothers because I haven't seen that movie. But like Kirsten Stewart, I haven't seen Jessica Chastain either, but I'm not upset that she's in the running to win something. And then Olivia Colman in The Lost Daughter, I think, is a good performance for sure. Yeah, I didn't realize that about The Last Duel. I agree. That's a pretty big snub. I mean, even not even like technical awards for that movie or anything like
Nothing.
that.
Got nothing. Well, then another one, I was a little surprised. I thought Spider-Man No Way Home would maybe have a chance at getting some more Oscar nominations besides 1 or 2 technical awards.
Mm-hmm.
Being a well-regarded Marvel movie, I could have seen that being on the Best Picture list, but obviously didn't make that one either.
Sure. Yeah, I mean their plan of like opening up the Best Picture voting so that more populist movies can eke their way in is not working. Let's say.
But we got Drive My Car though.
It's basically it's a list of 10 movies that your average walking down the sidewalk person has never heard of. Most of them.
Maybe they've heard of Dune. Maybe.
They've probably heard of West Side Story, but not because of the one in theaters.
They didn't see it, that's for sure.
Right. And they probably heard of The Power of the Dog just because it was on their dashboard. And they were like, oh, yep, not watching that.
That movie.
Maybe Dune. I don't know. Dune's probably the most populist on that list, short of West Side Story, just because it's got a legacy.
Yeah, but no one saw this West Side Story.
No, but I think no one saw it because it is like an old, like I'm not sure who was clamoring for a remake of West Side Story.
True.
I think that's definitely a streaming movie to me. If it wasn't a Spielberg movie, I'd probably have very little interest in it. But the fact that it is helps it along for sure. Anything else? Big picture? I really kind of wasn't upset with anything. I was like, okay. That happened.
Yeah. I'm not super excited about the Oscars this year, to be honest. It's just I don't know if I care that much at the moment.
Interesting. Is that because the nominations themselves are uninspiring? The movies are uninspiring? The place you are in life currently? What do you think is the root?
Yeah, maybe the movies are uninspiring.
Sure.
I don't know. Like, especially looking through that list of Best Picture nominees, it really just seems like these are the movies that came out recently. I don't know. Don't Look Up.
Yeah, Don't Look
is
Up
not a Best Picture.
That's crazy.
Sure.
You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
Take Don't Look Up off that list. Put on Last Duel. Come on.
How does Don't Look Up get on this list? It's just, I don't know. It's silly.
I don't disagree.
Well, I think we know how it got on the list, but how?
I mean, I would have been fine with Don't Look Up gone and like Tick Tick Boom. I don't think it should win Best Picture, but I wouldn't be mad if it was nominated for it. Or Last Duel. Wouldn't be mad if that's nominated. Wasn't my favorite movie of the year, but It was up there. I do feel like the Power of the Dog hype is a little much.
A little much.
Right. I like that movie too, but man,
Yeah,
12 nominations.
it's a lot.
Ooh, wow.
I don't know if there's any one movie to coalesce around yet. Like usually it's easy to say like, oh, this will probably be the big winner or one of these two. But I think right now there's like obviously Power of the Dog has the most nominations, but there's no guarantee it's going to win all those.
Mm-hmm. Sure. All right. If you had to pick and you were the sole voter, who's winning Best Picture right now?
Licorice Pizza.
Coda.
Oh, of this list, Licorice Pizza.
All right. 2 for Licorice Pizza, 1 for Coda. Other things of note in these nominations, Kenneth Branagh is now the only person ever to be nominated in 7 different Oscar categories.
Oh, wow.
He got 2 nominations in this batch. He's previously been nominated for Best Director, Actor, Best Supporting Actor, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Live Action Short.
Oh.
If Lin-Manuel Miranda wins for this one of the songs in Encanto, he will officially have an EGOT.
Oh, yeah, that was the other thing is I'm surprised that song was chosen from Encanto
Instead of the Bruno song.
or Pressure. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it seemed like Bruno was the song people are coalescing around. That was like your
Yeah. They
let it go
they
moment.
submitted before they could really tell where the popular kind of thrust would be.
Oh, is that
And
why?
they only
Okay.
put one song in so it wouldn't split the vote.
Interesting.
So they just picked the wrong song by
Yeah,
accident.
but it's still a good song. Like it's not a bad song they chose, but it's not the song you'd expect.
Right.
Can you believe that Encanto came out in the fall?
Yeah, I
And
believe
then
it.
it
Nobody
just
cared until it hit Disney Plus.
exactly. I think this is crazy that it's this movie has been around for 6 months and it's just gonna last a month we started talking about it.
It's the world we live in. I think there was like a time where people felt a pressure to go see movies and be like kind of the first people to see things, and now the pressure's gone. They're like, I'll get to it when it comes,
Well,
when it's on my streaming service of
right,
choice.
especially if it's Disney, like, oh, if I miss it in its first run, it'll be there in 3 months. No big
Right.
deal. Yep.
Yep. Kate Blanchett stars in 2 of this year's Best Picture nominated movies, Nightmare Alley and Don't Look Up. With the addition of those 2, she's been in 9 Best Picture nominees. She's appeared in more Best Picture nominated movies than any other actress in history.
She really picked them this year, didn't she?
Yeah. Well, evidently she regularly picks them. Troy Kotsar from Coda
Mm-hmm.
is the first deaf male actor to be nominated for an acting award, either in supporting or lead. Never had a single nominee in that category that was a deaf male actor. The last time a deaf person was nominated, she won.
Was that Marley Matlin in like 1980, whatever?
Yep,
Yeah. So
it was.
so we've had 2 deaf people nominated for Best Actor awards.
With Steven Spielberg's nomination for Best Director for West Side Story, it means he's been nominated for Best Director in 6 different decades.
Wow.
He's one of 4 people to receive 8 director nominations in his lifetime.
Wow.
It's also this year was the first time a documentary was nominated for Best Animated Feature.
Oh, is that
Flea.
Flea? Yeah,
Yeah,
that looks
Flea.
interesting.
Mm-hmm. This was the first year that an openly LGBT person has been up for a Best Actress award, that being Kristen Stewart. And also the first time that an openly LGBT person is up for a Best Supporting Actress award, that being Ariane Dubois from West Side Story. She's the Maria, I think, I don't know. I haven't seen that movie
I
yet.
think she's Anita.
Okay.
That surprised me.
Also, this is the last one I got. This year is the first time since the inception of Rotten Tomatoes that a rotten movie has been nominated for Best Picture. That being Don't Look Up with a 56% on Rotten Tomatoes. It's the first movie to be nominated for Best Picture in the Rotten Tomatoes era to be rotten.
It is really.
Yeah.
Wow. Even nominated. Okay, I'm thinking of Sandra Bullock. I think she got a Razzie the same year that she won like Best Actress or something, or was nominated for Best Actress.
Yeah,
Sure.
it's when
we're
she won
talking.
the
We're talking specifically a movie nominated for Best Picture.
Gotcha.
Other rotten movies have been nominated for other things, but for Best Picture,
Gotcha.
it's the first one.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Why do you think that movie got nominated? Is it purely politics and the
Yes.
fact that it's like a star-studded cast, like a
Ye-
combination of those two?
Politics, and they
Yes.
want them at the Oscars, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what I find interesting about the Oscars. A little bit of COVID talk. Guests and nominees have to be vaccinated, but presenters do not. And because they like there's some stars they want there who are not vaccinated, so that's why they're making that exception to presenters. I find that very interesting.
Which stars are not vaccinated?
So they're not. It's not like being discussed like, oh, we made it this rule so that way this star can be here. But I have to imagine that there are people they want there who are not vaccinated. Because if not, they would have made the rule that everyone has to be vaccinated. And they specifically said presenters do not have to be vaccinated. So that tells me that there's at least one presenter they want there who's not vaccinated.
Interesting. I would have figured everybody in the building has to be vaccinated. You know what I mean? Like you walk through the front door, you show your vaccine card. That's how they did it last year.
Not this year.
Huh. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I like the movies, the 10 movies that are in this list, but I think I follow Zach's lead in that, like, I'd like to see Coda win just because I think it's a good movie. I think it'd be cool that it wins. I think the fact that it's like a unique cast for the most part. I think I find all that stuff interesting about it, and I'd like for it to have a little footnote in history. But do I think it's vastly better than a couple of these other movies on here? Not really. It's not a clear, it should type of thing for me. All right. From talking about the Oscar nominations, we're going to talk about one of the 10 Oscar nominated movies. That being Nightmare Alley, a movie that we had not seen up until this week, and we're not able to include on our top 20 lists of 2022. So we've gotten to it now because it dropped on HBO Max and Hulu, I think. I think it was in 2 locations. So if you have not seen Nightmare Alley, you could watch it there. We're going to discuss it in spoiler-free and spoiler-full form, starting with spoiler-free, right after this clip.
I'll tell you what, you got a safe?
I do.
You should keep this for me. I don't want Molly to know about it anyway. Why don't you keep it for a few days? If you change your mind, we'll split it 50-50. And if not, I'll keep it.
You barely know me.
Oh, I know you well. I know you're no good. And I know that because neither am I.
That was Nightmare Alley, a 2021 American noir psychological thriller directed by Guillermo del Toro, based on, it's a remake of a 1940s noir movie of the same name. It
It's a
stars,
readaptation of the same source material of the movie.
oh, did it come from a book originally?
Yeah, correct. Yep.
Gotcha. Starring Bradley Cooper, Kate Blanchett, Toni Collette, Willem Dafoe, Richard Jenkins, Rooney Mara, Ron Perlman, Mary Steenburgen, and David Stratham, amongst others. The official IMDb plot synopsis for Nightmare Alley is: an ambitious carny with a talent for manipulating people with a few well-chosen words hooks up with a female psychiatrist who is even more dangerous than he is. That's like more plot than they normally give, I would say.
Yeah.
At least recently. So, we've seen the movie. Zach and I actually watched it together, which is a rarity these days, for sure.
Yeah.
When was I was trying to think about this, Zach, with Kyle earlier. When was the last time you and I were in a room and we watched a movie together? Like theater or not? It was pre-COVID, right?
I think it was, yes.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know what that would have been.
I don't know either. I don't even think before then we had done it recently, because who would have known, like, for 2 years we couldn't have done it. You know what I
Right.
mean? So, yeah, Nightmare Alley. We've all seen it. Who wants to go first with spoiler-free thoughts? Kyle. Your
Oh, boy.
default first person.
All right, default first. Well, let's just get out of the way. I didn't like this movie.
Oh, okay.
I did not like this movie.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
no,
odd.
No.
I thought this would be up your. I thought you were turning a corner last week.
Oh, 2 weeks ago with Licorice Pizza?
Yeah, because you went like,
Cinereelists curmudgeon.
yeah, you went months without liking anything, and then all of a sudden you liked something last week.
Month is
so
unfair.
it felt like months.
There was a couple weeks in a row I didn't care for the movies that we watched for their own reasons, and we saw Licorice Pizza, and that really worked for me.
Sure.
And then we got back to Nightmare Alley, and I'm back to my old curmudgeonly self. So, yeah, I had a lot of problems with this movie. For one thing, it's brutally long. This is 2.5 hours long. And that's been, I think, my major complaint with a lot of movies that we happen to review in the last year is every movie's 2.5 hours long. And I'm always wondering to myself, can you tell this story better? Or is this the best use? If you're going to take up that amount of time, is this the best use of this time? And this movie, I don't think, told the story very well, even with all the amount of time. Like, for example, we spend a lot of time in what I would call the first act in the carnival.
Mhm.
And given where the movie ends, it makes sense that we learn what we learn in that first act. But it also just, I think it took away from the second 2/3 of the movie. And it left when we finally got to the noir stuff with Kate Blanchett, that I think was underdeveloped. And the story didn't give me enough to care about where that story went. I'm trying to not talk about spoilers here, just trying to dance around it. And I think if the movie had either been shorter or if it had taken some of that time that we spent in the carnival, which I didn't enjoy, like the grotesque freak show carnival thing. It's very like Tim Burton-y vibes, like latter Tim Burton. There's, gross stuff in jars, and there's people being mistreated. And I just was not I was not enjoying that part of the movie. So I think right off the bat, I wasn't having a good time with the movie just because of the setting and what was happening. And the fact that when we did get to that, what was supposed to be the noir stuff, with Kate Blanchett, where she was coming from wasn't very a well-developed character. So I think then what happens with her just didn't really work, because it sort of felt out of left field for me, because we didn't get a lot of time to develop her character or her relationship with Bradley Cooper. I watched a lot of noirs in the last week to get ready for this list, because it's probably my favorite genre. So I that might be a fact too, that I've seen a lot of good noirs recently. So then I saw a lot of the holes in the problem with this one. And then I don't know why, but Guillermo del Toro decided to make this movie really grisly and violent also. And not violence in the sense of you'll have someone get hit by a car, which is fine. That happens in movies all the time. But then they show like the person getting dragged across the concrete and their face being opened up by the concrete and things like that. And I'm like, that did nothing for me. It didn't. It seemed out of place in this movie, and it just kind of took away from my enjoyment of it also. So I wanted to like it. I tried going with open mind. I was excited for noir, and it just didn't work for me.
All right.
So it sounds like you were squeamish.
I mean, I think there is a place for violence in movies, and you can be used effectively for either like a shock value or for to make a point. But in this case, it just seemed like it was more of the shock of like a let's get the audience kind of moment, or like let's throw some horror grizzle in here just for fun. It seemed out of place in this movie. I Again, from watching lots of noirs, which are made in different periods, they all have violence in them, but they also don't need to like show that level of violence.
Sure. Well, it was like the 1940s.
Yeah, right. So obviously,
I mean,
right.
if those movies were made today, they might have rated R violence in them.
But I mean, the fact that they were working within a code and still were able to get everything across that they wanted to without having to show it is pretty impressive storytelling.
Sure. I mean, I watched one this week that I was shocked people watched movies about characters like what I watched from
Yeah.
the 40s. I mean, I always thought they were far more puritanical than what is in the content of one of the movies I watched this week. So, that being said, there was like almost no violence in that movie. The movie that I watched this week. We'll get to it.
Yeah. Okay.
Kyle, have you seen Gaslight?
No.
Not yet. No.
Okay. Wait
Is
till you see
there-
that movie.
Is there visual violence in it?
Oh, yeah.
And that's a 40s movie, right? 40s or 50s?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's an older one anyway.
No, I have nothing wrong. Like I watched Total Recall.
It's
this
okay to be
past week,
squeamish, Kyle.
and there's like in Total Recall, it's Paul Verhoeven. There's tons of squid bags and like arms getting cut off, and in the context of that movie, that all works because it's supposed to be. It's kind of a satire in any way, but in this movie, it seemed out of place.
I got you. I have a comment on this that I have to say for spoilers,
Okay.
but it's a external to the movie. It's from an interview I read about it that I think helped explain some of it.
Great.
All right.
James, what did you think?
I was not bothered by the violence at all. didn't bother me at all. I mean, it's a Guillermo del Toro movie, so maybe I was going in with more of my Guillermo del Toro brain than Kyle was. Maybe he was going in with his noir brain more than his Guillermo del Toro brain.
Yeah.
And so I expected that because that's what he does.
I haven't used my Guillermo del Toro brain in like 4 or 5 years.
Sure. And Shape of Water, I think with Shape of Water, he hit a nice balance of like his style and also somewhat palatable to your average person. You know what I mean? I think he
Got him an
resisted
Oscar.
throwing
Yeah.
some of that stuff in with Shape of Water more than he did with this one for sure. But I like this movie. I liked it a lot. And I do agree that it was long, but I was buying what they were selling through most of it, so I was on board for the length. It didn't feel over long to me, and it felt like it had a very specific noir pace to it. You know what I mean? Like there were revelations and twists, and there's definitely like one big one at the end, and I liked the story it was telling and the way it was telling it. And I also really liked Bradley Cooper in this movie. He's kind of unlike anything I expect from him. He doesn't do this always, but he's definitely one of those actors that whenever he's in a movie, he's Bradley Cooper to me playing a character. And in this one, I don't know if it was the length or the performance, but there were times where I forgot that. And it's not even that he's digging deep. It's just that he's playing such a specific noir archetype. Like the way he's delivering his lines is in the style of what you would expect from those classic 40s, 50s noir movies, but it's toned down so as not to be a caricature of those, archetypes. and I enjoyed all of that. I really enjoyed just the frame of what was on the screen as well, especially in the office of the psychologist. Like
Mhm.
the set for the office of the psychologist was amazing. Um, like all the hidden doors and um, just the styling of the archways and all the gold leafing. It was really, really well done. And then on top of that, there's um, the lighting in that scene in particular, or any scene that takes place in that room in particular, was just had a super classic Hollywood vibe to me, even though the filmmaking itself is presented as pretty modern. I mean, down to like him showing Kate Blanchett like kind of a close up of her, and like you have a specific light that's just lighting her eyes type of thing. And even though it wasn't in black and white, you can imagine it in black and white in that
Oh,
way.
the window shade lighting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
That type of stuff. I do agree that it's kind of two movies in that the first half you're dealing with the um circus, I guess you'd call it. And then the second half is the con job half. And I don't necessarily prefer one over the other, but I feel like to explain why he's so good at this, you kind of have to have the circus part.
I,
And so,
yeah.
and circuses, it traditionally, I don't know, I probably haven't seen enough of them. But when I was a kid, I thought circuses could do no wrong. You know what I mean? Like every representation that I had of a circus was like Barnum and Bailey, fun, clowns, all these animals are loving this,
No, they
you
weren't.
know, and then there were like the Disney animated stuff, which generally was in those veins. I mean, Dumbo has a little bit of like animal abuse stuff in it, commentary here and there, but for the most part, that's how it was presented to me. And then it wasn't until I was, a teenager where you're like, oh, actually, being a carny isn't necessarily a fun life. You know what I mean? Like traveling from one place to another and having to do, yeah, that lifestyle is is not just a laugh a minute like it seemed like when I was a kid. And so I like the representation in this. There's a HBO show that lasted 2 or 3 seasons. It's really great. That feels like it's the same world. You'd probably hate it, Kyle, but it's this
Well,
exact same
I know
vibe.
it's a circus one, right?
It's called Carnival, I
Yeah.
think.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
It was really good, and they canceled it before they got a real proper finale. So I'm not recommending you watch it because it doesn't really end. But it was good when it was on. But it was pretty dark, and I think that's why nobody watched it.
Yeah.
'Cause it kind of made you feel gross. Anyway, I like this movie. Zach?
Well, I have to say, I did like this movie.
Oh, darn it. Come on, guys.
Yeah, sorry, Kyle.
I won't be an island again.
And I could see me not liking this movie. I mean, I agree with Kyle that there's a lot of kind of explicit violence in it that could be gratuitous. It didn't feel that way to me at the time. Um, like I wasn't disturbed that it was in the movie, whereas very often I think I would from this exact same violence in a different movie. For whatever reason, it didn't bother me as much in this movie because it felt right for this film. But this movie did have a lot that I really liked. I'm going to start with the cinematography and art direction. I loved the sets of this film. The art deco, everything was incredible. I love art deco. I think that's just a really cool look. And James, you mentioned the psychologist's office, and that there was just so much beautiful design work. And then the cinematography was beautiful. It was yeah, everything looked really gorgeously shot. And for the most part, it kind of used a bit of a wide angle to shoot things, just a tad bit wider than your normal film, but not as wide as like The Revenant was shot in. films that go super wide. So it was really in this focal length that you just never see in a movie, where it's a little bit wider than normal, but they didn't fully commit to the wide. And I liked it. I was like, I want to see more movies at this focal length, which is a statement I never thought I would say. And then I thought the acting performances by and large were great. So Bradley Cooper's acting performance I thought was great. Everyone's except for one actor. I was like, I cannot invest myself at all in this performance, and that was the wealthy man in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
He seemed out of a totally different movie.
Richard Jenkins.
Yeah.
I was not on board with his performance at all. He felt like he was acting, and I didn't like it.
And he was a very odd character too.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
with his tics and everything. Yeah.
But I kind of enjoyed the slight episodic nature of it. The fact that it completely switches gears halfway through and becomes a movie set in a different place with, totally different cast of characters. I was on board with that. Maybe just because in my head, film noirs are just notoriously meandering sometimes. And so if it just takes us somewhere else for a while, I was like, okay, well, I kind of expect that. Yeah, and I enjoy seeing things like mentalism debunked. Like I like seeing the behind the scenes of some of these like carny acts. And so yeah, I think overall I really enjoyed the film.
So I didn't talk about the art direction, directing, anything like that, and I agree with you guys 100%. Like this movie is well directed, and these sets are unique and very well thought out. I think my biggest issue with this movie is, for me, and we'll get to the spoilers, the noir stuff in the second half. There wasn't enough of it, so it just didn't pay off for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that. It paid off for me, but I was also dazzled by the change in setting. I mean, it's
Yeah.
such a difference between like the dirty grunginess of the circus versus the pristine, rich second half setting in the second half, city second half. Yeah.
Kyle, would your experience of the film have been different if no one ever told you this was a film noir and you were not making a top 10 film noir list for this film?
I think I maybe would have liked it a little bit better, but I don't think I would have liked it. I think there's enough in it that I still wouldn't have liked it.
Okay.
So maybe a half star to a star bump higher if I wasn't judging it. Maybe I was judging a little harshly against other noirs, but it is a genre I really enjoy. I mean, when we get to the list, making this top 10 list was almost impossible for me.
Nice.
I mean, so far, 1 out of 1 film noirs you don't like.
Well, don't worry. I've got like another 25 in my back pocket. So, I do have a Galen story with this movie.
Sure.
So, well, like I mentioned, he has this habit of coming out of his room after he goes to bed, especially when he hears us watching a TV show or movie. And I just kind of knew this was one he probably shouldn't like walk out and see. In the back of my mind, I'm like, this seemed like a movie I really want him to make sure he's in his bed. So I even like said when I put to bed, like, all right, not to like tell him anything else. I'm like, all right, I gotta stay in your bed tonight. Do you need any water? Do you have to go to the bathroom? Do you need a snack? Like, do you anything else you need? He's like, oh, I'm all good. I'm all good. Okay. And then we're watching the movie, and there's the scene with the geek and the chicken.
Sure. Yeah. Towards the beginning.
Yep. And then Megan's spidey sense tingles, and she turns around, and there's Galen. And then she's just like, Galen. I like pause it and stand in front of the TV. He's like, what? I'm like, go to bed. Go to bed.
Did he see it?
I don't know. I mean, yes, he saw it. I don't know if he registered what was happening.
Sure.
Because I usually ask him later. I'm like, oh, so you watched our movie? Like, what did you see? And he was like, I heard a guy grunting a lot. Was that guy okay? I'm like, oh yeah, he was just pretending or something like that. So like he definitely was picking on some stuff, but he wasn't like, oh yeah, I saw this crazy person and a chicken and blah 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 blah. So,
Sure.
but yeah, so we have a talk now of because like he comes out and then we'll catch him. He's like, oh, I need something. I'm like, now if you come out of your room, just announce yourself immediately and tell us what you need. Don't just stand there creeping in the back corner.
What did he need?
Oh, I think at that point he needed nothing. He
Right.
like he was
He
just
just
like
wanted to see what you guys were watching.
right. He just didn't see it exactly. So like if he needs something, but even when he needs something, he'll still just stand there until we see him behind our shoulders. So we're like, just announce your presence, please.
You guys need to put a mirror like right next to the TV. That way you can see behind you while you watch.
What I really want to get is one of those like in a store when you walk past a little sensor, a little doorbell goes off.
Oh yeah.
If I put that in the hallway, then I can hear him walk by before he gets around the corner.
Sure. You don't think he'll figure that out and figure out how to like step over it?
Yeah, he probably will, but I'll make it sophisticated. I'll do like a whole column of them, like in the spy movie, where he has to
Yeah.
do some intricate maneuver.
It'll be like entrapment.
Exactly.
He'll be
He can Catherine Zeta-Jones his way
yeah,
through.
Catherine Zeta-Jones and entrapment.
I mean, at that point, if he can make it through my laser course in the hallway, he can watch whatever he wants. He's earned it that.
You're ready.
You're ready. Come on, we're watching Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, I
I
like
had
it.
I had a question about that circus too.
Sure.
So again, this is not affect my enjoyment of the movie whatsoever. It's just like a economics nitpick.
Mm-hmm.
What's the economic incentive to like set up shop in a small town and stay there for it seems weeks on end?
Oh, I asked Zach the same thing. And I think they were there permanently. That house didn't move.
Yeah, but like they weren't by a big city. They seem to be in the sticks somewhere. Like how many people are coming to the carnival over and over again? Like you see the bearded lady once, you're like, okay, saw a bearded lady.
They were by a big city, and a lot of people came to it.
Well,
Yeah,
the movie showed us a lot of people coming, but I was wondering where are these people coming from? Because we're here in the middle of nowhere, and this is a permanent structure. We're not traveling around, every weekend in a new city, which I would expect one of these carnivals to do.
It is a permanent structure.
Oh yeah, I could tell that.
Yeah, but the middle of nowhere part, I disagree with. It's on the outskirts of a major metropolitan area.
Did they ever say what major metropolitan area?
No,
Okay.
and they didn't say that either. But I'm just assuming just because it's on the outskirts of something doesn't mean that they're 100 miles from civilization. I think it's just they're outside the city limits of Cleveland or something.
Yeah, I was getting like Kansas or Oklahoma or something like that. Okay, yeah. Again, I could have loved this movie. That would have been a nitpick. So it didn't affect my enjoyment of the movie. It was just more wondering where are we?
I definitely questioned whether they were a traveling group, but I never questioned whether they could draw people.
It seemed like they were a traveling group, and then they decided to set up shop somewhere. Right? Because didn't Bradley Cooper join
They
him in
didn't
one
go
spot?
into that at all.
Wasn't he hired like originally to break down? Weren't they breaking down the circus in the rain?
I did have that
it down
question
because of a storm.
Yeah.
Oh, that wasn't. But didn't Defoe say like, "Oh, we're linking up with this other circus"?
I don't remember that.
I don't remember that either.
I got the impression that they were traveling, and then they like linked up with whatever circus that Tony Collette was living across from. Because isn't that when he then met Tony Collette when they got to that new spot?
Well, yeah, but that was his first night there anyways. So when he broke down the tent, it was his first night.
Oh, was it? Okay. All right. Okay. Little things not affecting my thoughts on the movie.
Sure.
Just wonderings I had, musings.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Final thoughts before we go into spoilers for Nightmare Alley. Anybody want to sum up their feelings and then give a star rating?
I thought it was really a gorgeous film to watch. And I thought it was well acted. I enjoyed the story. It held my interest, even though it was long. It held my interest,
Mm.
and it is fairly predictable. But film noir is fairly predictable.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And yeah, I was down for it. There's some things I would do differently. I'm not a huge Del Toro fan, and it definitely has Del Toro isms in it.
Mhm.
And I could have done without those a little bit, but overall, I liked it a lot.
I liked it as well. I generally agree with what Zach said. I think if you're a fan of Del Toro, you obviously have to see this. If you are dabbling in Del Toro and you liked Shape of Water, just be aware of the things that Kyle didn't like about it as far as the violence goes, for sure. Because there are flashes of that in here that you might not expect from your typical PG-13 psychological thriller. It's definitely an R-rated
Yeah.
psychological thriller. And so just be aware of that. But generally, I enjoyed it quite a bit, and I would recommend it on the visuals and the performances alone because it's fun to see these people perform in this very specific style, but with modern flares to the filmmaking. I enjoyed the combination of all that stuff. I gave it a 4. Zach, what'd you give it?
4.
Kyle?
2 stars.
2 stars.
Didn't like it, but maybe I'm a noir snob.
Maybe. I'm definitely not. So
Yeah, James, I'm really curious to hear your list when we get to it.
sure.
Because I
Definitely.
know for you, you were like, I don't think I've seen a single classic noir movie when we talked about this list originally.
Mhm. Next up, we're going to talk about our top 10 film noirs. So these are, somebody want to try to attempt to give a rough definition of what a noir is?
I can do
Kyle,
that.
you love this. Yeah.
I can do that. So, well, there's a very specific time period of film noir, which is the like late 30s through the late 50s, early 60s. And these were movies usually about crime, but not always. Usually with a femme fatale, but not always. And usually with a innocent character, often a man, who gets pulled into a world of crime or conspiracy or intrigue. Um, Not saying
But
that
not always.
but not always. No, I mean, because you can't say like all film noirs are like this because they're not. But they
Sure.
do all have very common themes. They're usually kind of downers. They're sort of fatalistic in their worldview, and they usually center around murder or heist or conspiracies or long con, something like that.
And they typically have twists, right?
They typically have twists, yeah.
Right.
Whether it be a ironic twist at the end or it be a character turns kind of twist.
Mhm.
They're also often told in flashback or a narration. Not always, again, but like
Mhm.
the common thing of like Zach, you were saying with Nightmare Alley, seeing the not sure if you're seeing the beginning or the ending first.
Mhm. Nice. Couldn't have done it better myself. So we're gonna run down our top 10 film noirs. Why don't I go first? Because I think I have the least experience in this subject for sure. I think I have a decent amount of experience with neo noir movies that were made in the last 20 to 30 years. But as far as like classic noir films, I just have not seen that many of them for sure. In fact, according to the Wikipedia article of classic noirs, I've seen 13 of them. And with that list of 13, I made my top 10 list.
All right.
So
So are these all classic noirs for you?
I've limited it to what Wikipedia considered classic noir.
Oh, great. Nice job.
Did you,
which-
Kyle?
I went outside of that, but there are a lot of classic noirs on my list.
Sure.
What about you, Zach?
I have neo noirs for sure.
Okay.
I mean, I could make a list of classic noirs, but
I could have, but there are movies that I like that are not considered the classic noir period that I wanted to include in this list.
My number 10, 1958, Vertigo.
Yeah.
From Alfred Hitchcock. A movie that I enjoy, although on Letterboxd I gave it a 3, which is not particularly high for a movie that at one point was considered, what was it? They Shoot Pictures had it number 1 for a while. One of the major lists moved Vertigo up.
Sight
for,
and
like,
Sight and
Sound.
Sound.
Sight and Sound, yeah. I
That's
remember
the best picture.
Sight and Sound. What was the movie that had number 1 for like forever and then Vertigo?
Citizen Kane.
Citizen Kane.
That's what it was. It overtook Citizen Kane. So I probably need to give Vertigo a second watch because it's well regarded. I don't know what bug was up my booty when I watched it, but it wasn't particularly memorable for me. Maybe it's the James Stewart-ness. Is he doing his whole shtick in this movie? I don't remember.
No.
Isn't James Stewart in North by Northwest?
No.
That's
Who's that?
Cary Grant.
Don't remember, but I like that movie.
Yeah.
And don't necessarily remember what I disliked about Vertigo. But by the star ratings, it's my number 10.
All right, cool. My number 10 is Breathless from 1960. It's a Jean-Luc Godard film. And it's part of the French New Wave. It's great, actually. It's about a small-time crook that's being chased by a cop, and he shoots and kills him. And so he's on the run, and then he meets this American girl, and they kind of strike up a romance, but he doesn't tell her that he's on the run. And so he's hiding out in her apartment while he's trying to like leave the country, basically. The whole thing is shot. Everyone in this movie is just playing it cool, and it's a vibe, for sure. And I think it's just great to watch. This guy is so far up his own butt. It's really funny because he's just playing it cool. He thinks he's Humphrey Bogart, essentially, who's a classic of the noir genre. And so he's basically aping Humphrey Bogart the whole movie. And he's no Humphrey Bogart, I'll say that. But yeah, Breathless is great. And if you've never seen it, I mean, it's a classic. So my number 10.
I don't remember anything about Breathless, apparently.
Really?
Yeah, because I remember them driving around and talking, but when you're talking about all this setup and really, that's what happened in that movie? I've seen it. I believe you. I don't remember any of that stuff.
Sure.
Yeah.
It also, I will say, I believe
Sorry.
has the first high five in recorded history.
Yep.
If you Google this, a lot of people will claim it's a baseball player from the 70s, but this came out in 1960, and there's a clear high five. So,
is it right after a home run?
The baseball player?
No, in Breathless.
No. It's just he's saying goodbye to a guy, and
What?
they very awkwardly high five. It's like crazy awkward.
Do you want another fun fact that's totally unrelated?
Yeah.
What Alfred Hitchcock movie featured the first on-screen toilet flush?
Psycho.
Psycho. Yep. You got it.
Yeah.
Fun fact everybody knows, evidently. Kyle, what's your number 10?
My number 10 is The Long Goodbye from 1973, directed by Robert Altman, is starring Elliot Gould. Elliot Gould is playing a detective named Philip Marlowe, and Philip Marlowe is a classic literary character from the noir period. Humphrey Bogart plays Philip Marlowe in actually another movie on my list later in this. And in this, this is sort of this is a Robert Altman take on the genre of noirs. So it does take place in the 70s. It's kind of a satirical take on it. Elliot Gould isn't playing it cool so much as just like how you imagine Elliot Gould to be as a detective. He's just kind of playing it in his own unique way. But it's about like any good noir, it's about a man, or in this case a detective, and he's investigating the murder of his friend's wife. And as he gets farther and farther into the story, bigger and bigger things are revealed to him. And that's going to be a common theme for noirs and for a lot of mine on these lists, is that It starts with a usually detective looking into something simple, and as they keep unpeeling the onion, it gets the layers build upon that until they usually find some weird conspiracy underneath it all.
Nice.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's a great one. It's been aped by different movies after it, and yeah, it's great.
What was the director again?
The guy who didn't Robert Altman, like Nashville, MASH.
Yeah, so Altman's movies sometimes have like overlapping dialogue and kind of like a very loose feel to them, whereas noirs to me feel like a pretty tight formula. How did that work?
So it fits the formula,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not like so Nashville is like your ultimate Altman of like overlapping conversation, sort of like a hangout movie. It's not as out there as Nashville. It's definitely a genre movie, but it's not quite as tightly paced as your classic noir.
All right.
Like
Mine-
in the beginning, he's trying to get food for his cat. I think he spends like 5 minutes trying to get cat food.
Wow. Nightmare Alley's long.
No, because you say
5
that,
minutes getting food for a cat.
but they still tell in a complete noir story. Apparently, Arnold Schwarzenegger is in this movie. I just found out in 112 minutes, and they even cram in Arnold Schwarzenegger as Hood in Augustine's office (parentheses uncredited).
Wild. Was this before like Hercules in New York and stuff
I
like
mean,
that?
this is 73, so it's got to be
pre-fame. Arnold.
pre-fame. Yep.
My number 9 is from 1944. It's Double Indemnity, which is a movie that Kyle recommended to me before when we talked about doing this list.
Mhm.
A few weeks ago, I asked both Zach and Kyle to recommend a movie to me in this genre. They both did. Kyle's recommendation was Double Indemnity, which is a movie I enjoyed, but not because of the movie.
Ouch. Ouch.
I think
you
I
enjoyed it as a so bad it's good film.
No, it wasn't even so bad it's good. It's so exactly what I think of when I think of cliched noir movies. No, I understand it's like one of the first,
Yeah,
and
that's
it's
the
a
reason
template
why.
for
It's
a
the
reason.
first.
This is one of the movies that wrote the template, right?
Yeah.
But it was hard to watch as somebody in the year 2022 who does
Oh.
not have a love for this genre like
That
you do and
pains me. That's okay.
is experiencing it for the first time because it's kind of assigned. I mean, it's an assignment I asked for. And I appreciated it, but there were times when I was watching it where I was like, is this a Mel Brooks movie? I mean, it felt like a parody of every film noir ever. And there's a shot at the end that made me laugh out loud, and I'm curious to know if you find this funny as well, where Fred McMurray is hiding in a bush outside of a house or something, and it's the worst hiding in a bush I've ever seen in my life. I mean, like the dude's like 7 feet tall. And he's hiding in a bush, and his like head sticks up above the bush. He's not crouching to hide in it at all. And the younger character guy who is about to walk into the house, he stops him from going into the house because if he does, he's going to be implicated in some murder or something like that. And I was just like, this is practically a parody of a noir, but it's not. I understand it's like one of the first, but it played at times like a parody of what you think of these classic noir movies to be. Like down to the way they're talking, and like there's certain lines that I'm pretty sure aren't meant to be funny, but I laughed at just because of the delivery and the seriousness of the
Yeah.
dialogue. But because of the delivery, I was just like, yeah, it's kind of like what I imagine. What's the 007 movie that Austin Powers is based on? Isn't there like one specific movie that like some of the most broad strokes of Austin
Like with
Powers is
Blofeld?
pulled from? Yeah.
It's on Her Majesty's Secret Service has a lot of like the ski chalet and all that stuff in it.
Right. So
The-
if you grow up on Austin Powers and then you go watch that movie, it's funny. But at the time, I'm not sure was that funny. I think that's where this movie specifically landed for me. So I enjoyed it as like a historical document, and I tried to escape that thinking while I was watching it, but I could not help it at times. I was just like, this is exactly what I thought film noir is in a funny way. So
I mean, you gave Nightmare Alley 4 stars, so I'm not surprised.
it's fine.
You can have your Nightmare Alley. I will lovingly keep my Double Indemnity.
That's fine. My number 9. I give it 3.5 stars. I didn't
That's
dislike
good.
it
I'm glad you enjoyed
or
it. I'm
hate
glad you liked
watching it for sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure you wish Mel Brooks was directing it. So
Honestly, I
agree.
thought maybe he did. So
I think Double Indemnity is overrated for my book as well, mostly because of Fred McMurray in it. I think he's just so doofy.
he's very
like
doofy.
give me Humphrey Bogart
the bush
any
scene.
day.
The bush scene reminds me of that Simpsons meme where he's like sinking into the bush.
the bush.
Yeah.
I mean, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna save my defenses for Double Indemnity for later.
Okay.
After you guys you can guys make your arguments, and I'll just have the last word on this one. So
Well, you're gonna have to wait a long time.
it's gonna be a long time till I get there. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. My number 9 is a 1955 French crime film. And we've talked about films that, like, if it's your favorite film, it says something about you that you're pretty cool, right? If Pierre LeFou is your favorite film, I know that this
You're
guy
a cool guy.
is a cool
Yeah.
guy. If
If it's not, you're an idiot.
this is another one. If this movie is in your top 5, you're cooler than all of us combined. It's Rafifi.
Which is not in your top 5. So you're
No,
not cool?
I
Is that what
wish,
you're-
man.
Oh,
I
okay.
wish.
You're
I
not
can't
cool
pull off Rafifi in my top 5.
All right.
I'm not at that level. But if I met someone and they're like, I asked them their favorite film and they said Rafifi, my ears would perk up for sure.
Oh, you're talking about of all time, not like
Yes.
Okay.
Of all time. Because this movie is cool. This is a cool movie. He plays Le Stéphanois, and he's a small town crook that's been in jail for like a few years, and he gets out, and he meets up with his girlfriend, who's now his ex-girlfriend, and she's with someone else, and some of his old teammates are like, hey, let's pull off this heist, this jewelry heist together, and he's like, nah, I'm not doing that. And then he's like, okay, I'll do that. But let's if we're gonna do it, let's go big. So let's not just steal the jewels, let's steal the safe too, kind of a thing. So they're planning out this jewel heist. And this movie then shows the jewel heist. It's like a 30-minute near real-time jewel heist with no music and relatively no talking. It's just we watch them meticulously do this heist. So if you're a fan of procedurals, this is an awesome heist procedural. So much to the point where it inspired a ton of like real life crime, like people repeating what was done in this movie in their own jewel heists in their own countries. But the movie is just, it's cool as ice. It's really fun to watch in the same way that, remember Wages of Fear, and you're just kind of like super into what's happening because of the tension that it builds. This one builds tension in the same way. So Rafifi, definitely recommend it. My number 9.
My number 9 is a 1971 movie. It's called Get Carter. It's starring Michael Caine. He plays a crook based out of London who's traveled back to Newcastle for his brother's funeral. And the official report is that his brother died by suicide, but Michael Caine's character, Carter, believes that something else more nefarious is going on. And as he starts to poke around, lo and behold, he's right. Something more sinister is happening in this town. This is a really great movie. I really enjoyed it when I saw it. Two things really stood out. One, it takes place in Newcastle, England, which is like at least in the 70s was much more of like a industrial mining town. So usually like when you see noirs, they take place in big cities or like, in the suburbs of California or LA. And to see one in like sort of a small industrial mining town was a cool setting. It's definitely very gritty and just sort of black and gray the entire time. And then to see a younger Michael Caine performance, definitely in the last like 20, 30 years, Michael Caine has kind of settled into sort of playing the Michael Caine character in movies. You know, if, like a Christopher Nolan movies, he kind of plays the same person every time.
Mhm.
And to see Michael Caine, you know, young in the 70s playing a violent criminal who does beat people up, who does swear and smoke and, you know, enjoys all these other things is really fun just to see, you know, like the range that he had. Obviously, he's still a good actor. I have nothing wrong with what he does now, but he's had even more range, you know, 50 years ago.
Mhm. Nice. Haven't heard of that one.
It was remade by Stallone in the 90s.
Hmm.
I've not seen the remake, but I think the original is the classic.
My number 8, speaking of classics, from 1948. It's another Alfred Hitchcock movie. This one's titled Rope, which is probably most famous for being one of the first presented as one-shot movies. Is that true?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely the most famous.
Sure. Most famous of the early ones. Yeah. I enjoy Rope. I don't remember a whole lot about it. Isn't it like two college guys perform a murder and then one of them has a hard time covering it up? Or they
No.
cover it up and then one of them has a hard time like keeping it quiet type of thing.
Yeah,
No.
No?
they do a murder, and then they're so cocky about it, they then host a party with the body in a piece of
That's what it
furniture,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
then they start
Invite their professor over, right?
Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the
Yep.
professor like figures it out over time, right? Like he
Well, yeah,
comes to
because
the realization.
they start having conversations about like who's worth living to protect,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the greater human race, and then Jimmy Stewart's kind of like, what?
Why are we talking?
Why are we talking about this exactly?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I think this probably lands in the same category as Vertigo, but then with the added flair of the one-shot presentation, I think maybe put it a little over Vertigo at my number 8.
Sweet. Okay, my number 8 is from 1967, so I guess technically it's a neo-noir, but it's Le Samurai.
Oh yeah.
And Le Samurai is so good. The cinematography is amazing. If you want to see really cool lighting, this is a movie to check out because every shot could be framed on your wall. It's just so well shot with how it plays with contrast and light and dark and all that kind of stuff. It's rife with symbolism. So it starts with this criminal known as the samurai because of how good he is, right? And he's alone in a very minimalistic room. It's practically empty, except he's got a bird in a cage, and that symbolism of a bird stuck in a cage and trapped, kind of a thing, carries through the movie. There's basically he's a meticulous, super successful criminal who is kind of like has to work with people that aren't as good or aren't as careful as him, right? So the only reason he ever has to sweat is because other people mess up and make mistakes, and so he has to like deal with that kind of a thing. It's really great. I like it a lot. Le Samurai, my number 8.
The Samurai is one of the coolest movies I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's super cool. Yeah.
Alan Dolan as the samurai is just, you're like, oh man, if only I
Yeah.
had half of his cool, a third.
Yeah.
I wish.
Yeah.
I forgot to mention, and I sort of alluded to this before. This list was nearly impossible for me to make. When
Mhm.
I first made my short list, I had 35 movies on it,
Wow.
and I pared that 35 down to 22, and then of that 22, made a top 10. So I still have like 12. I could have made a top 20 easily with this list and would have loved all of those 20 movies, but I was able to choose 10 of those 20. So my previous 2 were also technically neo-noirs. They took place outside of that classic noir period. And I'd say about half my list is neo and half mine is within the noir period. My first one within the noir period is The Big Heat from 1953. This is directed by Fritz Lang, who is one of the original noir directors. He helped sort of solidify the style of the noir. And I don't think we really mentioned this, but the term film noir was not a term used at the time those movies were being made. It was a term actually from the 60s, and a French word noir for black that was applied to this period of movies because they were in black and white and because they're using such both like stark shadows in their filmmaking as well as just the dark themes of them. Then that term noir was retroactively placed on it, kind of like Baroque for the Bach period. So just want to point that out. But anyway, so 1953, Fritz Lang directed The Big Heat. And James, I think if you did not care for Double Indemnity because that felt too tropey, maybe check out The Big Heat, because this is a movie where it's violent. It's still 1950s code violence, but it's violent enough where I think you'd be surprised that there's this amount of violence or even implied violence in a movie from this era. It's about a cop who is he has to investigate a suicide. I believe it's a suicide of another fellow cop, and he doesn't believe it's a suicide. He starts learning things about financial records and about criminal connections, and the kind of starts pouring into the conspiracy like a lot of these movies tend to do. But with this factor, something happens that makes it very personal for him. So in the first third, he's kind of going through his normal noir investigation. Then something happens, and then the last 2/3, he's a driven man on a mission who will do anything to get to the truth. And I think that's not quite something you always see in these movies, to see sort of like a cop gone bad who will bend any rule he can to get to the truth. This movie surprised me when I saw it. It's really good, and I definitely think, James, you should check it out.
Cool. I will add it to the list. My number 7 is from 1950. I think this was also a Kyle recommendation, not necessarily for this list, but I think that's probably why I watched it. Maybe it's on your top 100. It's Sunset Boulevard.
Oh yeah.
Which
This is your first time seeing it?
No.
Okay.
I saw it like a year or two ago.
Okay.
Probably because it was on your top 100, I would guess.
Nice.
I can't think of any other reason I would have watched it, because I don't typically just pop in black and white movies for no reason.
You should more though.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, so I enjoyed this movie. I like the Hollywoodness of it. I mean, it's definitely a crime. I mean, I don't know if it's definitely a crime story. It's about an act. I'm probably gonna get this one way wrong too, but from my memory, it's about it's about an actress, right, who's a little washed up, and she gets romantically involved with a guy who starts taking advantage of her, and then
with a writer.
Yeah, and then he like feeds into her delusion that she's gonna come back as a Hollywood actress, even though she's pretty washed up, and then somebody gets murdered. Don't remember who or something. And then something else happens.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I don't remember the details.
That's quite all right. I'm sure Zach and I will fill it in later in this list.
But I do remember enjoying it, and yeah, it's my number 7. And I vividly remember like the ending and her being delusional, and like all the cops come in, but she thinks like they're there to film a movie, like her comeback movie. And I remember the final shot was like super impressive, where it's like she's like, "I'm a star" or something like that, right into the camera, like as they're arresting her.
She says, "I'm ready for my close-up."
That's what it was.
Yeah.
There's like a
Mr.
famous
DeVille.
line from that.
Yeah, one of the most famous lines.
I guess not famous enough, but yeah.
I knew there was a line. I just don't remember what the line was.
It's one of those lines where people say like, "I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille," and it's actually like, "Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up."
But that's from the movie too, right?
That is
From
the
Sunset
line.
Boulevard.
Yes.
That's the line in
That's
the
the
final
line.
shot?
Yeah.
That's the line.
Okay. Gotcha.
And does she get too close to the camera that she goes blurry? Or am I making that up?
The camera might either push into her face or she walks past the camera. But yeah, like she walks out of focus.
Yeah. And the supporting character in that film is a real director who was then a has-been, who used to be like a big deal.
Yeah,
Interesting. So there was some meta casting to it.
Oh yeah.
He plays the butler, right?
Yeah.
And then there's also the card game she has with like Buster Keaton and
Yeah.
other silent film stars. Yeah, there's a lot of commentary. Well, and the fact that the actress Norma Desmond was a famous silent movie star who is now short on work, was playing a character who is a famous movie star. Like it's yeah, this is a very inward looking movie.
So there was a lot of meta stuff going on that audiences at the time would have picked up that you might not pick up now, unless you do
Yes,
some
correct.
research.
Correct.
Cool. My number 7.
Nice. My number 7 is Blade Runner.
Good choice.
I don't have to say too much about it. But sci-fi and film noir work really well together.
My number 7 is The Killing. This is a Stanley Kubrick movie from 1956 also. And this is about a group of guys who decide to pull off a heist of a horse track betting arena
Mm-hmm.
course. That's the word I'm going for. And it's this
/ mannequin storage.
No, that's Killer's Kiss.
Oh, okay.
That's one before this, yeah. And this movie is pretty much a procedural about these guys scoping out this horse track, about making their plan, going through with the plan, and then sort of the ending to the whole thing. And it's a very well directed movie. It's obviously Stanley Kubrick. I think it's one of his first really good movies after getting his feet wet in this first couple. This is one where he starts to really find his own as a director. But it also has that kind of noir, ironic twist to it at the end, which also shows some of Kubrick's humor. So I think if you like early Kubrick, this is worth checking out.
Good choice.
Yep.
I guess I'm next.
Yeah.
My number 6 was the movie that Zach recommended to me for this list, White Heat, which by star rating is on par with Double Indemnity, but I did like White Heat more. I think White Heat also has a lot of tropes, but it just moved around more. Like there's just more going on in the movie, and absolutely they are different lead characters compared to the guy from Double Indemnity and the lead in White Heat. Like the lead in White Heat, I mentioned earlier, I'm shocked that like in the 50s, or in this case 1949, people accepted just your main character was just a huge murderous jerk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's what he is from frame one, and it never changes through the movie. And there is like almost no redeemable main characters in this movie. They're all just kind of criminals who will backstab each other at any given moment. And I feel like that's something that came to popularity in the 70s. At least that's what I always thought. But here it is. Here's a movie from, before 1950 where the lead is kind of unredeemable. And yet, are you meant to cheer for him? I don't know.
For James Cagney's character or for the
Yeah.
There's another guy I thought.
I mean, there's like an undercover cop who is embedded with him, but
Yeah.
that comes like, a good halfway through the movie.
I got the impression you're supposed to despise Cagney and
Mhm.
cheer for the cop.
Yeah. I couldn't really tell if they were trying to make the Cagney character a jerk or whether you were supposed to think he was cool.
And the other interesting thing about this era is all these movies are made under production code.
Mhm.
So usually they had to have like a crime does not pay kind of ending. Like you couldn't show the bad guy getting away with it.
Interesting.
So it's hard to find movies where they try and lionize the bad guy because they kind of weren't allowed to.
Completely.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
At the end, it always comes back to bite him type of thing.
There's one, I'm not going to mention it. I did include on my list. It's on my short list. I'm not going to say which one because I don't want to give it away. But it gets super noir-y, like it gets super dark, and then the character wakes up and it was all a dream, and they're like still at home in their on their couch, and it's
Hmm.
something where that the director wanted to make one movie, and then production code was like, we can't end there. So they're like, fine, he wakes up, it was all a dream, and it's
That
it
way he
doesn't
doesn't win.
it doesn't ruin the movie because it's still a really good movie, but it's still one of those things where you're like, kind of like, oh, come on. I wish they didn't have to tack that on.
Hmm. Yeah, with White Heat, I enjoyed it, and it does have a little bit of the Double Indemnity um feel to it, but it wasn't as bad, I would say. Probably just because it had more going on, and there was like a lot of movement to it. There was like train robberies, and it moves from one location to another far more than Double Indemnity. The Double Indemnity kind of moves from a house to like a, I don't know, what do you call it? The pharmacy back to a house. It's like
Don't forget the
there's
bowling alley.
sure there's a bowling alley. I don't know. It just seemed like White Heat was a little bit more of an epic with more characters, more
Mhm.
going on. There is a shot right at the beginning of White Heat though that I was concerned when the movie started, when they first cut to the like femme fatale of the movie. She's laying in bed asleep in full makeup, and then she wakes up, rolls over, is in her pajamas and high heels. So she's sleeping in high heels. And then at first I was like, is she in a dress? Is she just taking a nap? But nope. She throws on a bathrobe and then walks out into the room full of gangsters in high heels and a bathrobe. And I was like, okay. What are we doing here? High heels in bed? I don't know about this.
That's how they did it back then, James.
Women slept in high heels back in those days
Oh, if you were a woman in the 30s, you could not fall asleep without high heels.
and
What about
full makeup.
1949?
Yeah, full makeup. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, I was wondering if the whole movie was gonna be silly like that. And occasionally it was, but for the most part, I could hang with it. My number 6.
That's awesome. Well, my number 6 is Inherent Vice from 2014, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson. It stars Joaquin Phoenix, also has Josh Brolin and Owen Wilson in it. And this movie really is like an homage to The Long Goodbye, which Kyle already mentioned. The movies have very similar vibes to me. But I just really liked it. I was along for the ride. I thought it was a lot of fun to watch. I thought it was Josh Brolin especially is super funny in it. And yeah, I like this one. And it's the kind of movie where the main character just in over his head. He's confused for the whole movie. He's kind of along for the ride, and he's been being given the runaround by everyone he knows. And nothing is as it seems. It's just classic noir tropes. Yeah, so Inherent Vice, my number 6.
Good choice. My number 6 is another classic, maybe almost as famous as Double Indemnity, and this is The Big Sleep from 1946, directed
Yeah.
by Howard Hawks. I'm not going to try and describe the plot to this movie to you. I'm just going to read you the Letterboxd breakdown because this movie's plot-wise is almost indescribable.
I think people talk about how this movie has the worst plot of any, the plot, it makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah.
And it's still hailed as like this amazing film.
So what makes this movie amazing? Part of it, I think, that people do like is the fact that the plot doesn't make sense, but that's what makes for an interesting noir. Like Inherent Vice, does the plot make sense in Inherent Vice?
No.
No, but it's still, you and I still like. I don't think you care for that movie. No, but right. Despite the fact that you're like, this makes no sense whatsoever, it's still a fun movie to experience. And Big Sleep's the same way. Humphrey Bogart's playing Philip Marlowe, who we already heard in Long Goodbye, so the same character, different actor, and he's tasked with he has to investigate like the daughter of a general. She's up to something, and then all these other elements get involved of like, there's missing cab drivers, there's hidden cameras, there's saucy pictures being taken, and like every scene, something new happens in this movie. A new character is introduced, a new um plot device is introduced. Like this movie can't decide what it wants to be, so it just keeps adding something new every single time, and that's part of the fun of it. But it's also a Bogart Bacall movie. So Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall were a off-screen couple who only starred in 3 movies together, and they have amazing chemistry. And The Big Sleep is another chance to see their awesome chemistry between the two of them.
Yeah, it's great.
For some reason, I always thought that was a boxing movie.
Nope, not a boxing movie.
Not a boxing movie.
Now I know. Oh, I'm next.
You're
I don't know
next.
I don't know why I can't remember that I go after Kyle. My number 5, I don't have much to talk about with this one because I think most people consider it more a Western than a noir movie. But from 1948, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre,
Oh yeah.
which was
Yeah.
on that Wikipedia list in the genre crossover category. And I could see how there's noir elements for sure.
It's got Humphrey.
built into this Western. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I also consider it more a Western than a noir movie. But that's probably because I don't really watch noir movies unless they're neo-noir movies that have sci-fi edges to them. So my number 5, because I think it's a strong Western.
Nice. Okay, my number 5 has already been mentioned, and it's another Philip Marlowe story. It's The Long Goodbye.
Nice.
And Elliot Gould is awesome in it, and this movie's just a lot of fun too. So I liked it a lot. All the things Kyle said.
My number 5 is from 1974. This is The Conversation, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. This is actually the movie he made in between Godfather and Godfather 2, and it is up there with some of the best Coppola. It's starring Gene Hackman, who plays a surveillance expert who is tasked with, I think he's tailing a couple. Maybe there's infidelity or something going on, and he's trying to record them. And he's recording them in a plaza. And he's later listening to this recording, and then he hears something else on it. Not something he meant to record, but he hears maybe like a woman screaming or someone in danger. And he starts obsessing over this sound snippet to try and figure out what it is. And did he record a murder happening, and is unable to find out. It's kind of like the movie Blow Up or Blow Out, which are very similar, but about a photographer who thinks they see something in the distance in their photos. But it's just both a cool movie if you like old tech, because Gene Hackman is using all these analog devices for recording and for editing audio and for trying to isolate sound. So it's kind of cool to see that hands-on tech, and also just to see his character become obsessed to the almost the point of, I'm not gonna say what, just become so obsessed with this is a really interesting character evolution.
My number 4 is from 1952. It's another one that I definitely consider more as a Western, but in retrospect, I could see how absolutely people think this fits the noir label. From 1952, High Noon, which is a movie that kind of builds a timeline for an event to happen, and then it just kind of works its way towards that timeline. And I don't know what the other noir elements to it would be that would make it land on this list, but it was on the list. It was available. Therefore, it's my number 4.
This is the first one that I don't see the connection to a film noir. Kyle, anything?
For High Noon, no, I see this more as a Western first and only.
Sure.
I mean, it definitely has some of the themes of a noir about, I guess it's kind of fatalistic, but Sierra Madre, you could convince me it's noir. High Noon, I have a little bit more difficulty accepting it as noir. Was this on the Wikipedia list?
It was.
Huh. Okay.
Yep.
I would
There's
not
a-
consider this noir, but
There's a whole thread on our film noir on Reddit about how it's a noir, but I didn't know that until 2 seconds ago.
It's definitely not like the gung ho Western movie that we're used to of that era. So maybe that's why it's considered noir.
Could be.
Okay, my number 4 has already been mentioned, unfortunately, just because Kyle's always one step ahead of me. It's The Killing from 1956, directed by Stanley Kubrick. Such a great movie. I've seen this movie 4 times, and it's great every time. So, all the things Kyle said, plus more.
My number 4 is the previously mentioned Sunset Boulevard. Yeah, James, I think you got a lot of this right. It's about a writer who links up with an aging actress and tries to restart her career while also restarting his own career. Famously, this starts with the writer dead in the pool, and then I think there's some narration. It's not as quite as cheesy as like, "Yup, that's me," but it's definitely this narration of that's me in the pool.
Yeah.
And
I think that almost is what he says. Yep, that's me in the pool.
Okay, maybe it is as cheesy. I've not seen this movie in a couple of years, so either way, it's kind of him saying like, "That's me in the pool. Let me tell you how I got here." What we haven't mentioned yet is this movie is directed by Billy Wilder, who's one of my favorite directors. He is an amazing director and writer, and like in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, he could do no wrong. This is not the first time he'll appear on this list, but he definitely made several noir films, one of them being Sunset Boulevard, which is a definitely top 50, probably top 30, maybe even top 20 movie for me.
Nice. My number 3 is from 1955, and it's Diabolique, I think is how they say it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great choice.
Yep. Or Diabolic.
Diabolique, yeah.
Which is another one that, I don't know, maybe you guys can remember the noir specific things, but I think of it more as like a psychological thriller than a tropey noir. Maybe it just has shades and it's not like a straight noir. But
certainly the cinematography is very noir-y.
Sure. Yeah. Maybe the visual presentation. But yeah, movie I enjoyed. It's an older movie that I enjoy. Those are hard to come by, but this one fit the bill. I think it's not even in English, right? It's French.
It's in French, yeah.
It might be the only. No. I think there's one other non-English speaking movie in my list. Are there is noir generally an American, at least from this time period, an American thing?
I don't think so. I think it's half American, half French.
I would say the noir period is American, but then the French in the 60s picked up the noir themes and kept going with it, with like Jean-Luc Godard and Alphaville and those movies like that. So
yeah, but they were doing a lot of that in the 50s too. I mean, so maybe it started in America.
Yeah.
And they picked it up with gusto. They got really excited about it.
I mean, again, we mentioned this. The French named it film noir. Like they fell in love with it and kept the torch going. So
yeah.
And
then in turn, American directors in the 70s fell in love with those French films. And that's where we get Scorsese and Spielberg and, all of them.
And then
De Palma.
The directors in the 40s in America were influenced by the German expressionism of the 30s. So like you could even go back to German movies in the 30s and say those were proto-noir. So
yeah.
Everything is a remix.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Zach, what's your number 3?
My number 3 has been mentioned already. It is 1974's The Conversation.
Oh, wow. Sorry, Zach.
We have a lot of overlap, Kyle.
I think you and I have a lot of taste. Similar taste.
Yeah. Conversation is fantastic. And James already mentioned toilets. This by far has my favorite toilet scene of any film.
Oh, is that the final scene?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's so good.
That's better
way
than
better
the
than
Jurassic Park
Trainspotting.
toilet scene? No way.
Yeah.
No.
The Jurassic Park toilet scene is a one note gimmick on a character that I care the least about.
It's amazing.
It's
Probably
amazing.
the most memorable toilet scene in the history of film.
Disagree.
Well,
I say
I did
conversation.
hard disagree.
Have you seen The
because
Conversation, James?
The Conversation exists and Train Spotting exists.
Oh, Train Spotting.
Train
yeah.
Spotting's great. Conversation's great. If you asked your average person, name a scene with a toilet in a movie, Jurassic Park every time.
Because everyone's seen Jurassic Park.
Well, it's the greatest.
No, that
No,
doesn't make it
just
the
because everyone
greatest.
sees
just
me as
'cause
the greatest.
It's the greatest.
2.5 Men is the greatest comedy of all time.
Avatar is the greatest movie of all time.
I would not
CBS
disagree.
is the greatest
And
TV station of all time.
the toilet scene in Jurassic Park is not one of the 10 most memorable things from that movie. That's the thing, is like it's competing with way too much from that film.
I disagree. Look, 10 things? You don't think it's one of the top 10 things from that
No.
movie?
I don't.
I do.
You don't either.
I do. It's a solid number 8 or 9.
No.
Easily.
8 or 9. How solid is that? Okay, my number 3 conversation.
All right. So, with the exception of The Long Goodbye, all of my movies so far have been a pretty straight take on the noir genre. And even The Long Goodbye, it has satirical elements to it, but still is a take on a straight take on the genre. But my number 3, definitely a satire for the whole thing, but I love it. Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Good choice.
Yeah, and this movie, I rewatched this recently. It's been a while. It's a top 100 movie for me. And this movie it has all the noir tropes, but it doesn't feel like cliches. It uses them just the right way, while also setting the entire thing in the world of Toontown, where cartoons and, in this case, it's 1940s detectives and actors can interact. And it's great. It hits all the noir tropes, but also like makes jokes about them the entire time. They make fun of the lingo, so like you couldn't talk about sex in the 40s, so they like say things like, "Oh yeah, we went home and made patty cake," or something like that, you know. And then in this case, someone's taking a picture of people, making patty cake, and they're literally playing patty cake, and like the characters find out to be the worst thing in the world, that his wife is playing patty cake with another man. So it's great. You've got Bob Hoskins as like the hard-boiled detective who plays that role perfectly, but then really opens up at the end. And then Christopher Lloyd, obviously Doc Brown, he's well known for this, but I would say that this is as iconic a character as Doc Brown, as Judge Doom, and a much more disturbing character for a kid of the 80s than Doc Brown.
For sure.
This is all directed by Robert Zemeckis, who was making Back to the Future at the time. I think he made this one between Back to the Future 1 and 2. So that's, interesting. Coppola, between his, big 2 movies, made Conversation. Zemeckis, between his big movies, made Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
They both took a noir break.
Right. They're like, all right, I got big. What do I want to do next? I'll make a noir with cartoons.
My number 2 is previously mentioned from 1955, Rafifi.
Wow.
Which I believe is a movie that I watched because Zach told me to. And
James,
Zach,
that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
I mean, it's not my top 100 favorite of all time.
Sure.
It is in my top 10 film noirs out of the 13 I've seen. It's number 2. I agree. Like, if you forget the noir part, if you like heist movies, I think this is on a must-see list if you have not seen it yet. I think it's an example of like a classic heist movie, but even if you don't like classic black and white movies, you'll still like this. Like, it's interestingly made, and the proceduralness of the actual heist kind of makes it worth it. And then you still have a scene after that I thought was really good too. Kind of the double cross at the end was good, and kind of like, isn't it kind of like set in like a broken down building or something like that, or outside the building? I don't remember. But I do have good memories of Rafifi and thought it was pretty cool. Also in French, I think.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
It's good.
Cool.
Isn't this the movie with like the umbrella in the floor? there like a scene where there's like an umbrella covering a hole in the floor?
Yeah.
Yeah. I have that like burned into my brain that's cool.
All right, my number 2 is from 2001. It is David Lynch's Mulholland Drive. And this is a movie that it's it, I think it is such a masterpiece. Not that I understand it, but because it has so many scenes that are fantastic, that are perfect 11 out of 10 scenes for me. And it does that over and over, and I'm always so impressed. This movie is awesome, and it's confusing, and I only get about half of what it's trying to say. But there's this one scene where like yeah, I'm not going to go into any of these things. It just because I won't do them justice at all. But the Mulholland Drive is so enigmatic and so topsy-turvy and surreal and ridiculous and awesome, and it's great. It's David Lynch, I guess, but it's really good. I've never seen what's the David Lynch movie that came out like 10 years ago that's really long? I never saw it.
Oh, I don't know.
I might need a little more than that. Are you talking
well, he doesn't
about,
make that many movies.
Are you talking about Inland Empire?
Yes.
I haven't seen that either, but I've heard it's disjointed in like a jarring way.
Yeah. I should check that out. I wonder if I'll get Mulholland Drive from it or if I'll get Blue Velvet from it.
The people who like that movie really like it, and the people that don't really don't like it.
Yeah.
I've never heard of anybody who's like middle ground on it.
Yeah, it's so long. It's 3 hours.
That's why I've been scared of it.
Yeah.
Kyle?
Anyway, that's my number 2.
Is it me? Okay, thank you. My number 2 is the previously mentioned Double Indemnity from 1944, directed by Billy Wilder. This is, I don't think we really talk about the plot at all. Fred McMurray plays a single insurance salesman who falls in love with Barbara Stanwyck, who is married and in an unhappy marriage, and they concoct a plan to kill her husband and then make it look like an accident and then collect insurance on it. And it's something like if he dies on a train, they get double indemnity. That's where the title comes from. So they come with this plan to kill the husband, make it an accident, and then noir-y things happen from there. I love this movie. I watched this for the AFI Top 100 and fell in love with it. Yes, it has all the beats you expect from a noir movie because this movie laid down the template. This is sort of the mold that a lot of these noir movies followed afterwards. And I could see how for some people could find that to be cliche or to be cheesy or like, oh, I've seen this all before. But for me, I like seeing where it all came from and it all worked. I know, Zach, you think that Fred McMurray's kind of a dopey guy in this movie. And I agree he's dopey because I think that he's not trying to... I should just refresh that. I don't think Humphrey Bogart would have been better in this role because Humphrey Bogart is too cool. Whenever he plays his detective characters, like he's not one that gets suckered into things. He's always a little standoffish, but still follows the path of whatever's happening. And in this case, Fred McMurray thinks he's the coolest guy in the room. He thinks he's the smartest guy in the room, but he still falls for Barbara Stanwyck and gets sucked into her whole plot unknowingly. And I think that works. The fact that he was kind of like the Disney dad before he made this movie. Right, wasn't he like in not Nutty Professor, but like Shaggy Dog and like a lot of those early Disney live action movies?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Probably.
So he's definitely playing against type for
And
this
I think
era.
the Nutty Professor,
What was he? Oh, okay. Was he the Nutty Professor?
or was that
I thought that was who's the other guy?
Oh,
Jane.
he was in. Yeah. Who was in the Flubber?
Flubber is Fred McMurray. Nutty
Robin
Professor
Williams?
is no. we're talking black and white movies here, James. Anyway, so Fred McMurray works for me because
Absent-minded professor.
the absent-minded professor. Okay.
Yeah.
Because he thinks he's Humphrey Bogart, but he's not, and that's why he works.
I agree that I think he's playing a very specific character who's kind of in over his head and like just wanted to do something for this woman that he wanted to bed, basically. Right? Like that's kind of the whole motivation for him helping her is he finds
yeah.
her attractive. And
It's the anklet. Can't take his eyes off that anklet.
yeah, I mean I understood why he was a goofball, but that didn't make me not laugh when he was a goofball. You know what I mean? I don't know. No part of his performance makes you laugh, like or anything. Doesn't like
No. But, I mean,
you treat
also,
it 100% serious.
well,
I mean, I think maybe he might even be intentionally being a little over the top with the goofiness.
I guess I can put on like my 1940s hat when I watch these movies, and like I know to expect a certain performance. It's not going to look like how I watch movies now.
Sure.
So I guess I'm able to code switch and be like, okay, I'm watching a 40s noir movie, so this is what I know to expect. Now there's still silly versions. I don't like every noir movie from the 40s, right? It's not like if I see one, oh, I'm gonna love it right away. I tend to
Sure.
like them, but this is one of those cases where, yeah, it's not like how I'd expect a movie to be made now, but because of when it's being made, I can expect these kind of performances to be happening.
But you think that when they made Double Indemnity, they thought it was deadly serious and like there's no comedy in this movie.
I wouldn't know, because I don't think Billy Wilder is a deadly serious guy. I think he had his own streak of humor and dark humor. So I would definitely say that maybe there is some dark humor to it.
Mhm.
But and I do think Fred McMurray was trying to play bad because of what he's been associated with before. So maybe he was overdoing it on that one side, and it came off as a little hammy. But it doesn't for me.
Cool. All right, my number one most favorite noir movie that I've seen from the classic noir time period is The Night of the Hunter, which is great. I mean, this is another one that even if you don't prefer movies from this time period, I think you could watch this and get stuff out of it. It's a pretty devious movie, I would say, and good performances, and those knuckle tattoos are pretty awesome. And yeah, it's good. Check it out.
Fine.
My biggest issue with that movie is great up until the end when the mother gives this direct to camera plead to save the children.
Yeah, it's a little.
And that's like, oh, it's a little much. It's like, even for that era, it was a little much.
Sure.
Do you think it saved any children?
Maybe.
Do you think people watched Night of the Hunter and then they saw the end and said, we should protect the children? You're right.
I think maybe.
It probably didn't hurt. I'm sure it didn't make any children in a worse scenario. They're like, hey, kid, I just saw Night of the Hunter, and boy, you just wait.
It's another movie that like people consider, or at least in my brain, the 50s is like a pretty wholesome time period in like American culture. And I mean, Night of the Hunter is like
It's a
about
dark
like
movie.
a serial killer, like a pastor turned serial killer. And it's
Preying on single mothers.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a pretty dark movie.
Yeah.
For sure. I can't imagine that this played well in movie theaters, but evidently it did.
He's got that menacing whistle as he's walking around. Yeah.
My number one.
My number one is my number 5 favorite film of all time, and that is 2005's Brick, directed by Rian Johnson, and stars Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And I just love everything about this movie, and it's 100% a love letter to film noir. Yeah, it takes all the familiar tropes, all the dialogue, all the sensibility, all the characters and places them in a high school, like a modern day high school scenario. Um, but kind of like a Shakespeare adaptation, it leaves the original language. So they don't talk like high schoolers; they talk like hard-boiled detectives in a 1940s film noir, and it just works so well for my money. Um, yeah, so instead of like talking to the police chief, he talks to the principal, but he talks to the principal the same way Humphrey Bogart would talk to the police chief. And there's so much that I like about that film. But yeah, so Brick is my number one.
I need to give Brick a second chance because I saw when it came out, and I did not have the love or appreciation for noir that I do now.
Gotcha.
And I think if I watch it now, I'd have a much different experience
I
than
think
when
you'll
I did 15 years
really,
ago.
I think you'll really enjoy it.
Yeah,
The dialogue is so good.
I kind of wish I had rewatched it for this list.
Yeah.
It did not cross my mind, but great pick for number one. I'm surprised. I guess, James, I'm surprised that it's on yours because of the years of your list. Zach, I'm surprised that this did not make your list. My number one is Chinatown.
Love Chinatown for sure. Yeah, it's on my honorable mention, of which I have 80 movies on my short list.
You have 80 on your short list?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was
We're
35.
gonna go through them at all in hour 3 of this podcast.
So Chinatown is directed by Roman Polanski, starring Jack Nicholson and Faye Dunaway, as well as John Huston. Jack Nicholson plays a former LA cop. I think this takes place in like the 30s, maybe. It doesn't take place in the 70s. It's not contemporary.
Mhm.
I can't remember the exact time it takes place.
It's a period
Anyway,
piece.
it's a period piece. He's a former cop, now private detective, who's tasked with investigating infidelity, that maybe a husband's cheating on his wife. And it's supposed to be a pretty simple job. Like, take some pictures, prove that this cheating's going on. Roger Rabbit borrowed this plot line almost verbatim. And then in investigating this infidelity, he starts to uncover a much larger and sinister conspiracy, both at the family level as well as the citywide level. It is a great, twisty, dark noir where every scene, the Jack Nicholson's learning something new. He's always one step behind of what's going on. Like, every time he turns a new rock, is a new revelation. He's like, oh, that's happening. And even when he finally all puts it together, being a noir, it still has a pretty dark ending to it. It has the very famous line, "Forget it, Jake, it's Chinatown." So if you know that line, you kind of get an idea of where this movie is going. And it's great. It takes all the tropes of the noir and tells it in a great story with great acting. Roman Polanski, obviously, as a person, lots of problems with him, but this is a movie that is masterfully directed and that I love.
Oh, yeah.
Nice. I like that movie as well. It's a good one.
Zach, do you have some honorable mentions? You want to beam through your honorable mentions?
Yeah, I could just name check a few. Maltese Falcon is a great Humphrey Bogart. Laura, The Asphalt Jungle, Touch of Evil, Big Sleep, Big Heat, The Third Man, Dark City, which is such a unique sci-fi film. Little Caesar, The Bad Sleep Well, Gaslight, which I mentioned before, has one of the most shocking endings of any film ever. Le Cercle Rouge, The Lost Weekend, Rebecca, The Raven, Laura Le Corbeau, To Have and Have Not didn't get mentioned, which I'm surprised about.
Yeah, I see that more. I consider that it's more of like a war film to me, but it definitely has that Bogart Bacall back and forth in it.
Right. If anytime you have their banter, it's noir.
I get it. Totally get it. Well, yeah, that's got the "you know how to whistle, don't you?" Like the incredibly famous famous line.
One of the most famous lines in movie history. Yeah. The French Connection, you could consider noir.
Yeah.
Badlands you could consider noir. M you could consider
That's
noir.
very very early.
And then one that James and I watched together, Under the Silver Lake. That was a good
Oh.
neo noir with Andrew Garfield.
Sure.
I've not seen that one, but I heard it's also good noir.
It's very much the long goodbye.
Okay, I'll add it to my list. A lot that you mentioned, Zach, were on my honorable mentions too. Couple more to mention: The Woman in the Window, the original Scarface from the 30s. That's
Yeah,
that's great.
That's good. That's really good.
In a Lonely Place is another Bogart noir, but it's definitely much more of a drama, less
Yeah.
of like the twisty, but still really good. Ace in the Hole, which I recently watched. This is
Yeah.
another Billy Wilder with Kirk Douglas. If you like Nightcrawler, definitely check out Ace in the Hole. It's about another journalist who massages the situation to get a story out of what's going on. Alphaville, Jean-Luc Godard from the 60s. It's sort of a parody of noirs with sci-fi things going on. Zach, have you seen this one yet?
Oh yeah,
You have? Okay, good.
yeah, it's great.
Touch of Evil, Strangers on a Train, Hitchcock, about two men who agree to murder strangers for each other, and then things unravel. And then The Long Good Friday, which is a movie I talk about a lot in this podcast. Bob Hoskins British crime drama. It's pretty dark.
I mentioned to you guys that I had 13 movies to choose from. Do you want
Yeah,
to
what
know
are
the
the
three
three?
I did not pick?
Yeah, I do.
The Miracle of Morgan's Creek, which I had
Okay.
zero memory of. I don't know
Yeah.
what it is.
I've barely heard of it.
I've seen
The
that.
Killing, the Kubrick movie.
Yep.
And Killer's Kiss, the Kubrick movie.
You didn't like The Killing?
I went by star rating, and I gave The Killing 2.5, and I gave
Really?
Killer's Kiss 2.
We all watched The Killing together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, 2.5 is average. It's like, I don't hate it. I don't love it.
Wow.
What
Yeah, I remember
expect at the
you,
time.
like Zach and I thought this movie was great, and you're like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. I mean, I don't remember anything about it, but other than the mannequin thing. which
That's Killer's
evidently-
Kiss.
All right. Well, I don't remember anything about The Killing then.
Remember the horse track and all that?
Vaguely.
Okay.
Double
Only,
Indemnity.
only because you mentioned it.
Now I do. Double Indemnity is getting a Criterion release this summer.
Nice. 4K or
excited.
non?
I don't know. That's a good question. It might be Blu-ray. If it's
I've heard
4K.
rumors that Criterion might stop making 4K Criterion.
Because they're $60. Is that why no one's buying them?
I think that's the problem.
Yeah,
that's
they're
a
way
lot
too
of money
expensive.
for a movie.
Like, Even
and I think
30
they've
for-
conditioned their buyers to just be happy with Blu-ray.
Yeah.
Most 4K
it is going to be a 4K release.
Oh no, I don't want to pay $60 for that.
You
That's
don't
a
have
lot
to.
of
You can get the
money.
Blu-ray.
I might get the Blu-ray. Even 30 is a lot. I might get the Blu-ray and put a camel alert on it. Wait till it
Sure.
gets down.
Yeah. Well, thank
Zach's
you for
shaking his head.
joining us. What?
Then Zach's shaking his head.
Oh.
Well, because you're going to pay for the Blu-ray, and then you're going to get the 4K at a good price, and the two of those together is going to equal the original price of the 4K.
No. I'm just gonna get the Blu-ray
He's saying he's just
And
gonna
then
live
what's
with
the
Blu-ray.
camel for?
for the
He's gonna
Blu-ray.
wait for the Blu-ray to go down.
Oh,
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna buy the Blu-ray then wait for the 4K. That'd be ridiculous.
you
I
do
would-
that all the time.
Don't be
Well,
ridiculous.
no,
Zach.
I don't. I don't. If there's a 4K version out there, I don't buy the Blu-ray to then later buy the 4K. I just wait on the 4K if I want it.
Mhm.
I don't want to pay $60 for 4K. So in that case, I would just buy the Blu-ray and be happy with the Blu-ray.
I can't think of a single movie I'd ever pay $60 for on physical media.
I can think of one, but I already own it on 4K. So
Really? What movie?
Oh,
2001.
2001. Oh, come on. I'm.
If it was
yeah,
$100, would you have paid that?
I mean, I would probably ask for a gift to have someone else pay $100 for it. But yes,
You would have acquired it somehow.
I would have acquired it somehow. Oh yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Thankfully, it's a well-regarded movie, so it's easy to find.
Well,
I'm
thank you
waiting
for
for
listening.
the 8K.
Sure you
I
are.
won't be able to tell at that point.
Thank you for listening to this episode 518. We appreciate your listenership. This was a long one. Thanks for hanging in with us. Don't forget, check out the video version, support us on Patreon, leave us an Apple Podcast review, or send us an email to heyguys@cinereelists.com. Another reminder, we are on social media on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. So check us out there, or you could follow me on my personal Twitter or Letterboxd account at YoJRB.
You can find me on Twitter or Letterboxd at Shaubin.
You can find me on Letterboxd at PeterSKB.
We will be back next week with a top 10 last 10. So look forward to that if you know what that means. We'll see you there in 7 short days. Until then, keep it cinereal.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.
All right, this is spoilers for Nightmare Alley. If you have not seen the movie, don't listen to this because we're going to spoil the movie. And if you have seen the movie or you don't care, listen on because, again, we're going to spoil the movie. So, Nightmare Alley. Zach mentioned it was predictable. I agree. It's very predictable. Like, down to like the moment she took the drink of alcohol and then kissed him, I was like, he's going to become the geek. He's going to be drunk from here on out. It's going to ruin everything. And he's going to become the geek.
Oh yeah, like you totally knew even at the beginning when they were talking about here's how you get the geek, here's how you find them, and how you draw them in. You're like, well, this is Willem Dafoe laying out the end of the movie for me.
Yeah.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I was not surprised where this movie ended. I was actually okay with the way where I thought that was an interesting arc for the character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Zach, you had said you had a comment or something you heard in an interview.
Yeah, you were saying you didn't like all the like fetuses and jars and like those kind of imagery. It felt out of unnecessary, maybe kind of a thing. And I defy you to find a person that loves fetus and jar imagery. But
Well, I think Del Toro's up one.
I read about this, and apparently those were absolutely things at circuses.
Oh, I believe they were. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're called pickle punks. That was the nickname that circus folk would give these jars. And when Bradley Cooper was talking about this film and his character, he referred to his character as a pickle punk. And so there's a metaphor there that I think went over my head because I don't actually understand the connection. But Bradley Cooper for sure sees his character as a pickle punk in the same way that those jars are. And so somehow those represent his character and his journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love for someone to explain the connection between those two, but I think they served as a visual motif for his character.
Do you think it has something to do with like him being kind of trapped in a jar, or maybe the idea of like drunks? Sometimes people are like, oh, he's pickled type of thing. Do you think some combination of that as to why he would consider himself the same thing as a baby in a jar?
Yeah. I was thinking it had some. His last line is like, "I was born for this"
I
or
was born
something
for
like
this.
that.
Yep.
I thought maybe it's something to do with the fact that like he never had a chance. This was always going to be how he'd end up, like stuck in a cage or a jar,
Sure.
as like this grotesque creation that he was never going to escape what he always was, kind of a thing. I don't know.
Yeah, or where he came from, because wasn't his dad like a drunk, abusive
I
drunk
guess.
type of thing?
Yeah, in that house.
What the house that he was burning at the beginning of the film, was that his father's house?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he
was burning his father's body.
he's building
in
his
the
father
house.
in the floor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he, like, there's this. It's supposed to be this mysterious flashback, right? We see him put a body in the floor and burn the house, and you're wondering what it's going to be, and like obviously it's his father. Like it was not that big of a mystery, right? Because of these tropes. But the moment right before he kills his father, and he kills his father by like ripping the sheets off him. His father's sick. It's in cold weather outside. It's very much a double indemnity way of murder. He says to his father, like, "I always hated you," and then rips the sheet off. And I thought that was such a clunky line. Like, of course he hates his father. Like, we don't need you to say that to the audience. Like, I got the sense that he hated his father much.
And you
way before
watched
that
a
happened.
bunch of classic noir films recently. I mean, they are so talky. They reiterate things over and over and over again that are very obvious. I mean, that to me, that's like very much in line with a noir.
No, it
style.
felt no, it felt like it was trying to be noir, but it didn't quite get like that cool cadence down. So it's just like, "I hate you," rip a sheet off. Like it's very angsty and
No, I'll agree that the delivery is different, but the idea that they're reiterating that he hated his father, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's classic noir, but of the few that I've seen, they reiterate themes like on its face, even when they don't have to make sure that you're kind of keeping up with things. At least that's my.
I actually thought that was a good
recent
scene.
observation. I thought it
because
was too.
prior to that, the movie was kind of making it look like he was caring for his father, like tending to him while he's sick. And that was kind of a rug pull for him to then say, "Oh no, I hate you, and I'm about to like kill you with coldness."
I guess the way he talked about his father to other people, like, "Oh, he was a drunk." Like he made a big point of, "I don't drink because of my father," and the fact that we see him burn a body at the beginning, generally, in my mind, someone would not burn the body in the house of someone they loved. So the fact that it was the burning, which to me was a cue that he did not care for whoever he was burning. He did not care for this person, and then obviously figured out it was his father.
For me, the burning scene that the movie starts with, I actually wasn't sure if that was the first thing that happens chronologically in the film, or if this is the last thing that happens and it's showing it first.
Which is a very noir thing to do, to show you the ending at the beginning and then rewind the whole thing.
Which is what I assumed it was. So then that's why I didn't mentally connect it with his father.
Okay. For whatever reason, I kind of got the impression that what we were seeing was the first thing that happened. Or maybe once we got that scene and then we saw him show up at the circus, I made that connection. Oh, okay. Well, he went from burning this body to now being, homeless by the circus.
I didn't connect the father being the body until much later in the movie, nor did I think burning the body in the house was like a sign of hatred of the body.
Agreed.
I just figured he was getting rid of the house and the body was there type of thing. He's never coming back to that house type of thing. I mean, it makes sense now, and I could see how you could read into that, but I definitely did not pick that up.
I don't know.
But I also didn't feel like he was taking care of the father. I mean, honestly, it wasn't until the scene with Toni Collette and David Strathern, where David Strathern is like, "It's always the father," and blah blah. Around then, I was like, "Oh, the body's the father." And I thought at some point he's gonna like violently murder his father. Does he murder him? Yes, but the way he did it is like almost more cold than had his father been a drunk and like they tussle and he kills him type of thing.
Right. He wanted his dad to suffer. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It was like that. Like the reason why I like that scene and the I always hated you and the pulling the blanket off of him is like that is a cold-hearted way. Like if he doesn't like you, he will do that to you, not the quick thing.
Mhm.
He will make you suffer. He's a little bit of a psychopath, and at that point in the movie, I think I'm not sure you're meant to cheer for him, but at least like not be like disgusted by him. And you get the vibe that, yeah, maybe you should be disgusted by this guy. Shortly after that, he's running over people with cars and like other stuff too, where you're just like, oh, this is actually not somebody you're supposed to cheer for.
Right. By the
He's
end,
the villain.
you're a disgusting person. Yeah.
Right.
So the other thing that didn't work for me was the Kate Blanchett twist,
Mhm.
which was like we saw coming because, like you said, Zach, these are tropes within these stories. But for me, there wasn't enough relationship development between the two of them for then her turn like that to seem to make sense. Like plot wise, it made sense, and how she sent him up and why she sent him up, that all made sense. But I didn't get any chemistry from them. I didn't get any relationship development between them. So it just seemed more of like a plot device that she was going to turn on him, and less of like I guess it's like more of like a seduction to get him more like to do her bidding, and then she turns on him after he does what she needs him to do, which is another common noir trope of the femme fatale temptress.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree. There's not much setup, but there was enough for me to follow what was going on. You know
Yeah.
what I mean, so I don't know. It sounds like you wanted this movie to be longer, Kyle.
No, I think I wanted this movie to be more. I wanted this movie to spend more time on the noir and
Mhm.
less time on the circus backstory.
Mhm.
And I think for me it was
Sure.
just a lack of balance in storytelling, and that we got too much circus at the beginning, and then the noir stuff felt rushed. Like we have to hit these beats because this is what you expect from a noir film, but we're not. It's like Game of Thrones final season. We're hitting all the beats, but we're not really giving you that connective tissue in between.
Mhm. I'm saying just to acknowledge that I heard what you said, but I don't
Okay.
agree. I had
Okay.
I had plenty of connective tissue. How did you feel about the connective tissue, Zach?
Yeah, no, I did not have a problem with the storytelling or pacing. I bought the chemistry between those two characters. I don't think he would have felt like utterly betrayed. I don't think that was beyond the pale, because she started as a kind of rival. She was always dangerous in a way
Mhm.
as a femme fatale. I enjoyed the extended mentalism scenes at the circus. I enjoyed the like kind of psychic readings with the rich guy scenes in the second half. So
Mhm.
my favorite relationship though was him and Rooney Mara,
Oh yeah, we didn't talk about
and
her at
seeing
all.
that change like over time and stuff like
Mhm.
that, because she struck me as a very complicated character, and I enjoyed her presence, especially when she's like going along with his plan, even after she's decided it's over. Like she cared about him and wasn't going to let him, um, uh, die because he can't pull off what he's already promised.
Mhm.
But she lost all desire to be with him already. I found that all very interesting.
Sure.
And it was a great plan too. I really liked how he was going to set up the final medium reading at the end. I thought that was very clever.
I'm trying to think of what you would cut out of the circus. 'Cause I don't think there was much fat there. I mean, you cut out the card reader or the con man at the beginning, then you don't figure out how he becomes the con man. You cut out the Rooney Mara character, you don't have, the good girl at the end that he loses for the femme fatale. You
I-
cut out the Willem Dafoe character, you don't have him ending up as the geek. You know what I mean? There's nobody to explain the geek or, to kind of be the bad Carney compared to
What-
the tarot reader and the con man.
What I would cut Ron Perlman. I don't think we need that character. Like we already know
As the protective
right. Like
pseudo father.
we already know she's the fragile needs protection one of the group. He was there just to make it clear to everyone that she needs to be protected. And I think that could have been cut out of there. And I
What
think
would you do with the minute and a half that you saved?
I would obviously give you more time with Kate Blanchett. That's funny. I like that. Good job, Zach. It's more than a minute and a half. But
Trying to
I
think
would
of what
also-
else happened.
I would do less with Defoe and the geek. Like you have the geek escaping at one point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that really was. I mean, because it kind of showed Bradley Cooper being kind, but we also learned he's a psychopath anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you could have gotten rid of the geek escaping, and I think you could have. That would probably saved you 5 minutes right there. So you're right. I mean, like I can't think of it. Maybe some of the stuff with Toni Collette and David Stratham could have been shortened, but you obviously needed David Stratham there to give him the idea of the cons and all that. So
Mm-hmm.
I understand. Like I'm not saying we should cut the Carney stuff because I understand how that fits into the movie.
Sure.
I just think that then for me, what I needed from this, it took away from that second half where
Yeah.
the cons and the noir stuff's clicking in.
Have either of you seen the movie Freaks?
No.
No,
But I know of it. It's like a 20s movie, right?
Well, no, it's not that early. I'm gonna go look up how early it is. It's 32.
I was
Yeah.
way off.
James, come on, you better.
I know. I need to get on my game.
Yeah. I mean, anyways, I've seen it and it's really good. It's very odd to see the subject matter in 1932, the 30s, and but I think this movie is absolutely pulling on some of that source material.
Because in Freaks, they used like actual people with deformities, right?
Yes.
Like non-actors at the time.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's a little of a touchy historical document at this point.
Yeah.
I could have watched that contortionist dance for like half an hour though.
Yeah.
He was great.
He was good.
Yeah.
For sure. All right. Anything else? Spoiler filled about Nightmare Alley?
No.
I enjoyed the twist. It makes sense that it was there, but I did not see it coming. But I understand why other people would, because all the signs were there that she was going to turn on him at the end. Yeah.
And there was Kyle, I thought you would have loved this because it was the Chekhov's gun. They bring up a gun and then they shoot it in the third act.
Yeah, Chekhov's gun. Like, we've been there for 100 years now or something.
It was great. It was a classic Chekhov's gun.
No,
right?
It was a classic gun of introduce it in the second act. They cheated a little bit.
Introduce it and you think in a satisfying way, like we're done with this. We don't need to ever think about it again. It's fully explained why we brought it up this first time.
Mm-hmm.
And then it comes up again. And of course it comes up again.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think at that point, the movie had kind of lost me. So I wasn't looking for Chekhov's gun or any other Chekhov's materials.
Sure.
Do you think now that you've experienced Nightmare Alley with a little distance, if you were to rewatch it, that it would be a different movie? Now that you know how much to expect a noir, how much to expect a Guillermo del Toro movie, you know what I mean? Like the
Yeah.
expectation might be adjusted on second watch.
Possibly. I really think I think it was the noir thing was really maybe pigeonholed me into expecting something from this movie.
Sure.
And if maybe that word hadn't come up, I'd have had a different experience with it. I also just haven't seen, I mean, like since Inherent Vice, I can't think of a good straight noir that I've seen since. in the last couple of years.
Sure.
Like there's obviously there's neo noir movies with noir themes that we can get into all that or whatever, but I just want like a good classic noir made in modern era.
Awesome. All right, that was spoiler talk for Nightmare Alley. Thanks for listening. We'll see you guys next week.